spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man.
Hello and welcome to episode 20 of Amazing Spider-Man Classics, in association with SpidermanCrawlspace.com. My name is John Wilson, and with me in the studio, as always, are Joshua Bertone.
When he calls me by my full name, I feel 24 years old.
Someday that joke will end.
Someday.
It's altered.
And Donovan Morgan Grant.
Hiya.
I would like to thank you for downloading this episode of Amazing Spider-Man Classics and remind you that this show is brought to you by Roll2Play, an online vendor of games and gaming accessories. You can visit their shop at roll2play.com, that is spelled with the number 2, or find them on Facebook if you search Roll2Play, all one word, again spelled with the number 2. Currently, the store is offering 15% off on their entire selection, sometimes more, for the fall season leading into the holidays. One of their featured products is a hot-selling game called Dominion. It is not a customizable card game, but the play of the game is similar to the construction and play of a CCG deck. It comes with 500 cards. Each player starts with an identical, very small deck of cards. And the concept of the game is basically that you are building a kingdom, that you are a monarch like your parents before you, trying to bring civilization to the peoples around you. It's been selling like hotcakes at the store there, and it is available at 15% off. Again, roll2play.com, spelled with the number 2, and that game is called Dominion. We don't have any emails for you today. We will be addressing those hopefully in the next episode. Didn't have time to record those for this episode, but we do appreciate the emails, and should you wish to contact the show about the things you hear today or on other episodes or Spider-Man stuff in general, the email address is amazingspidermanclassics@gmail.com. We have some excellent Spider-Man books we're going to be taking a look at tonight, but first I want to introduce a man with whom you may or may not be familiar. He was the comic book archival researcher for the documentary With Great Power, the Stan Lee Story, which recently premiered at San Diego Comic-Con. He also has the claim to fame of owning every single issue of The Amazing Spider-Man. Here with us tonight is Eddie deAngelini.
A hearty hello to everybody. I do not have a witty joke as the rest of you do, but hopefully you'll greet me just the same.
Welcome to the show, Eddie. We're glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I have never actually spoken to anybody before who has every issue of Amazing Spider-Man. We had JR on the show, who had a pretty wide collection because he'd been collecting for a long time, and Brad Douglas goes back to the 20s in his collection, but every single issue. Tell me about how that mission came about.
Oh, goodness. Let's see. About 4 or 5 years ago, maybe more like 5 or 6, I just got the bug on collecting Amazing Spider-Man. And it's gone before that. Some of the very first comics I've ever gotten when I was a little kid, 10, 11, 12, was Spider-Man. So I grew up reading Spider-Man. I grew up loving Spider-Man. And sporadically from then to now, I've always kind of, collected here and there. And my guy was always Spider-Man. So when I just started buying up issues about 5 or 6 years ago, my goal was I want to own the first 100 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. That quickly grew to I want to own the first 200 issues of Amazing Spider-Man. And then I got a really nice copy of issue 300, and I thought, okay, well, I've got to close the gap and make it the first 300. And at that point, I just said, forget it. I'm just going to make it a goal to own every issue. So eventually, over the past several years, from what I've already had to what I needed, I kind of finally just built up that whole collection and got every one. Josh was there in San Diego with me when I told him the only issue I have left that I need is issue 2, and then I ended up getting it there in San Diego.
Do you have Amazing Fantasy 15 as well?
Yeah, go ahead and give me a paper cut and rub salt in it, why don't you? No, I don't have that issue.
I'm sorry.
That is the one issue. I don't have it. That is the goal, to get that. I've had other people that I know that are big into Spider-Man and also have every issue tell me, until you own that, you don't own every issue. But I'm very quick to tell people I own every issue of Amazing Spider-Man, basically saying just that title. So no, I don't own that yet. And then if you want to get specific, I don't have all the variants because, as I was telling John a couple days ago, it's really hard to justify buying the same book more than once, especially, if it's a brand new day issue and it's maybe just not all that good. It's hard to justify doing that. But I will buy variant covers as well if it's a really nice variant cover. Like,
You hear that, Marvel? You with your
exactly.
variants.
Sure. And some of them are just not that good, and I can't justify spending, and a lot of times if they're marked up to like $6.99, $10.99 or more, I can't justify buying them, But there was that really nice copy, variant cover of that John Romita Sr. did a couple issues ago. That, of course, that's one to buy. So, yeah.
Well, even more of a gold mine than Amazing Fantasy 15, an issue that you really, really want to make sure you add to your collection because it's not only valuable as a story, but also germane to the mythology is, of course, Strange Tales Annual 2.
Go ahead. Boy, you're really rubbing it in. I saw that in San Diego just this past summer, and that was an issue that I did want to buy then and there, but I had the choice. Okay, I've got money to either buy that or buy number 2 and finish off the run. And
I was totally just teasing because it's not that great a story.
I hope you listened to I hope you listened to the episode we went over that by the time you were in San Diego.
But as far as the Spider-Man completist, that is one that I think you should get though. And
okay.
that is one that is on the list. Yeah.
Well, I don't mean to keep pouring salt on you, sir. I just was curious about exactly where all you stand as far as the collecting goes. I'm curious, but I don't want to pry. Do you mind talking price tags, like what you paid for issue 1 or 2 or whatever?
Well, the number 2, when I was there in San Diego, I got a pretty good deal. I think I offered the guy $200. He wanted a little more for it, and it wasn't the greatest copy. It was maybe like a nicer looking, lower end condition book, but it was one that I was still pretty happy with owning. When you look at it, you can see it's got a little wear here and there, but no big discernible spot of damage that looks bad. It's just got, general wear for the condition. It looks nice. So, yeah, $200. You can't beat that, right?
You really can't.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
To complete the series, there you go.
Well, cool. How did you even get into the character in the first place? How did you get into comics, and how did you get into Spider-Man?
When I was in grade school, there was a book club where you could order books in class, and you would mark the books you want, give the teacher the money, and then 3-4 weeks from now the books come in and you get they distribute them out to the kids. Well, in that catalog of books, they had those little pocket-sized Marvel books of Spider-Man where the first volume was issue 1 through 6 and the second one was issue 7 through 12.
And they stopped putting the covers inside after the second volume.
You know what? I think you're right. But I think Brad Douglas had mentioned these too, that when he was a kid, that's how he got into Spider-Man, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I had no idea who Spider-Man was at that point. I was in grade school. I got him. I read them and loved them. I read those things over and over and over and over. So that was it. That started a love with Spider-Man in comics.
Well, cool. Yeah, I had those books when I was wee, and I had the chicken pox, and that gave me lots of in-bed time to just sit there and read Spider-Man over and over and over again. So, yay. Well, cool. And you recently had the opportunity to premiere the documentary film With Great Power, the Stan Lee story at San Diego Comic-Con.
Yeah.
We'll get into the books in just a minute, but just go ahead and feel free. Take a minute and describe your role with that and what that film is.
It is a feature-length documentary on comic book legend Stan Lee. It pretty much follows his whole life from his birth and childhood and all the way up to the present day. So it really goes over, and Josh saw it, so he can probably add a little bit as well, but it really goes over from his childhood in poverty, how he got started at Timely, what led up to him creating all the characters of the Silver Age with, Jack Kirby and Steve Ditko and all the greats, and really follows his life past Marvel and what he's done since then. So as far as my role, I heard about the opportunity to intern for it from my wife. And at this point of my life, I thought, I'm not going to be an intern. I'm too old for that. I'm not in school anymore. But I thought, you know what, it might be just kind of fun. One day a week, you go in there, you help out, you know, talk shop, talk comic books, you know, and help out. Well, it ended up that a lot of the other interns there, although they liked comic books and they liked Stan Lee, they didn't really know a lot about the history of it. And so I quickly stood out because I did. So I was always the guy that everyone went to whenever they had questions. Or, you know, like what issue of what comic did this panel appear? We need to identify it for legal, you know, or anything like that. Or can you get a scans of this, of scans of that? So a lot of the images that you see from the original comic books in the movie are actually from books from my collection. So ended up that the internship ended up with me being the comic book archival researcher because I was just the guy that everybody went to, you know. So it turned into that, and I was on staff there for working on it for about a year and a half, close to a year and a half, all the way up to the premiere in San Diego.
If I'm correct, there's not yet word on wider availability of that film. Is that right?
No, I probably should not go into specifics.
Is there a site they can follow to if in case that were to be announced?
Yes. Go to withgreatpower.biz, and that will lead them to the website for the film. And also, there's a link on there to join the Facebook page. Your best bet is to join the Facebook page because you will get periodical updates as far as any premieres that are coming up, or any DVD releases, or possibly maybe even theatrical releases. Without getting too specific, because I know I shouldn't be giving out details, the two producers that I worked for were in talks with Disney as far as distribution. So beyond that, one, I probably shouldn't say anything else, and two, I don't really know too much else beyond that.
That's fine.
So,
I wouldn't want you to say things you shouldn't, but thank you for the information. And yeah, we'll I'll be joining that Facebook page soon because I'd like to see that film. Okay.
There's also, if you join the Facebook page, you will see several pictures that I took of the screening and of the panel afterwards. And I think
I'm on it right now.
Oh, are you? If you look, I'm not sure, but I think I might have put up the one picture of Josh with Stan.
Okay,
If it's not
right,
there, if it's not there, I think I might go back and actually put it up.
That's right. That's one of the things that Josh is personally grateful for is Eddie helped Josh Bertone meet Stan Lee at the San Diego Comic-Con.
Oh, yes, and everyone got to hear about it all the way from the convention center to my car as I was walking through downtown San Diego.
And Josh, I don't know if you really actually talked to him long enough to corroborate this, but I can definitely say Stan Lee is probably the nicest, most gracious guy you could ever meet in this industry. A lot of people really want to kick up dust with the fight between Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, and did he create this? How much did this person create, and so on and so on. And the truth is, when you really study a lot of that stuff and talk to people from that era, it really was a time where people just all put their input into everything, and nobody really wanted to take credit for this percentage or that percentage, because at that point it was an industry that people were embarrassed to really be in. Not like it is today where people are superstars in an industry. So really, as far as who created who, that debate probably will never be settled. And there are people that to this day will say, I hate Stan Lee because he jilted Jack Kirby or this, that, whatever. But the truth is, when you meet the guy face to face and spend a little bit of time with him, he is the nicest, most gracious person you could ever meet.
Well, he was really nice, and the movie actually did show alternative sides to that story, because they talked about in the movie that reporter who came in and wrote up Jack as if Jack was the devil, and Stan and Joan were waiting for a call from Jack and his wife about the article, and they had no idea some of the stuff. So
yeah, and if you ever do really have a chance to meet Stan, he is that type of person where he is just very grandiose and just boisterous, the way he comes across in his old bullpen bulletins. And he just had that ability to be able to kind of take over the attention of the room, to the detriment to some of the artists or other creators that were there. And from what I hear from him and from other people in that era, Jack was just not the type to step forward and really take the spotlight. So unfortunately, like with that article, he did kind of get pushed back into the shadows.
Any listener will know that we definitely have a lot of fun, giving digs to Stan and giving digs to the storytelling choices and the tropes and everything they've been going through. But that's not to say that
women.
Yes, that's not to say that the group of us does not have the utmost respect for Stan and for the artists that went into creating our character that we celebrate on this show, Spider-Man. So,
and trust me, a lot of that goofy stuff that we read in a lot of these earlier issues, I guarantee that if Stan went back and looked at them now, he'd probably agree with all of you that it's just really just kind of really goofy and over the top. So.
And it was revolutionary for the time, I guess. I mean, I joke about how they hit you over the head with the irony of the situation, but
yeah, and you also got to consider too that a lot of this stuff back in the '60s, Stan had said, I don't know if he says this in the documentary, but he actually said it to me that he had no idea that any of these characters would have a life beyond 4 or 5 years, because at that point, especially before he created all these characters, Marvel pretty much would just hit on a genre, milk it to death for 3 or 4 or 5 years, and then move on to another genre. That's why you see a lot of in the '50s went from romance to western to horror, because they just flooded the market with whatever was popular, milked it to death, and moved on to the next thing. So he was expecting pretty much the same thing to happen with this superhero fad. 4 or 5 years, everyone will forget all about it and they'll want something else.
Because that had happened a couple times already.
Sure.
And yet Patsy Walker lives on.
But Marvel Boy didn't, They tried superheroes. They tried bringing back Torch and Namor and Captain America in the 50s, and it lasted 6 months. And so I can see.
And Stan had said that those really were his favorites, and that's why he tried to bring them back in the 50s. And when he brought them back in the 60s, he did it because they were his favorite characters, but he really never expected any of it to last.
Right. Well, it's very exciting to have you with us in the show today. So we are going to dive into comic books now, and on the plate for us tonight, we are looking at issues 28 and 29 of Amazing Spider-Man. And the first of those, issue 28, has a release date of June 8th, 1965, with a cover date of September. Has a really cool cover. I don't know.
Agreed. One of the best.
Yeah, I really dig this. The background is completely black, and Spider-Man's suit is all black, with the web lines in red. So it's sort of a reverse effect there. Molten Man is approaching the camera all glowy and sinister looking. It's just amazing. Our captions read, "Cloaked in darkness, Spidey faces the mystifying menace of the Molten Man." And also in this landmark issue, you won't want to miss Peter Parker's graduation, which is exciting. I'm sure we'll have a lot to say about his graduation in a few. But also on the cover, in the masthead on the top left, there has been a change. Instead of...
It's not the change as much that bothers me. It's their pretentious explanation of it in the back.
Yeah, we'll talk about
pages. The pretentious.
We'll talk about the why this happened when we get to the letters page. It does say instead of Marvel Comics 3, it now reads Marvel Pop Art Productions.
One thing about this cover, if you take a look at Amazing Spider-Man 188, you'll see a somewhat similar recreation of this cover.
Is that the one with the Vulture?
It's the one with Jigsaw, and it's the same kind of effect of Spider-Man coming towards Jigsaw, where you see him from behind, and he's kind of lit in the shadows.
Oh, yeah. And Jigsaw, instead of looking sinister, he looks scared out of his schnizzle.
Mm-hmm.
He's shooting that gun wildly, hoping that Spider-Man does not get to him. And
but you can see it's kind of the same thing.
Yeah, but the design is definitely there. The character's expression is just different. That's really cool. I hadn't made that connection. Okay. Opening splash page has Peter Parker dressed in civvies, not as Spider-Man, entangled in some sort of coils, while a man in a suit is exulting in some sort of radiation glow stuff. The title reads The Menace of the Molten Man, and it was written and edited with loving care by Stan Lee, plotted and drawn with the talent rare by Steve Ditko, and lettered and bordered with a vacant stare by Sam Rosen.
Oh, he didn't do S. Rosen this time.
I was going to say, yeah, he came out of the proverbial closet.
Yeah, he revealed that he actually is a male letterer.
Maybe it was because, the Merry Marvel Marching Society record outed him.
Yes.
I got a bone to pick with you guys. You played that song on the last episode, and it just made my blood boil, and I'll tell you why. There was a whole week. For a whole week when I was working on the Stan Lee documentary, I had to try, because we needed to use it for the film and we had to get legal clearance for it, I searched for an entire week to find out who owns that song, who owns the rights to that song. And nothing. Can't find anybody.
Wow.
So apparently no one owns it. So play away.
It was John's idea.
Oh, thanks.
Well, trust me, you're not going to get in any legal trouble whatsoever because cannot figure out anything. I even talked to grandchildren of what's his name, Martin Goodwin. Everybody at Marvel practically, tried to find anybody. Nobody wants to lay claim to it.
That's weird.
Yeah.
The darkest secret of Marvel.
Yeah.
It's probably Ditko. He never takes credit for anything.
Surely they had to know like who produced it. I mean, surely
Well,
there's...
I even went so far as to contact the company that actually recorded it, and they know nothing.
Wow.
They've been all murdered. It's a real hush-hush situation.
This is like going to be like a cover-up, Da Vinci scale, like
Yeah.
degree.
I didn't mean to.
Turns out their last name is Donner.
We're going to find out it
What
was like
follows is the most dangerous human cover-up in human history.
It was like
Yeah,
Julius Schwartz, but Bob Kane tried to take the credit, like he does with everything.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And if I misspoke, I meant Martin Goodman is what I meant. I talked to his grandkids, and they know nothing about it.
Huh. Well, speaking of Merry Marvel Marchers, there is a little exciting balloon at the bottom of the splash page that says, Marvel marches on to another new adventure triumph. So that is our exciting introduction to this story. We open at the beginning of the school day. As Peter is heading for the school building, the principal catches his attention and lets him know that Flash confessed to starting the fight the other day, which is a callback to issue 27, covered last episode. Peter goes inside and sees Liz Hilton.
Whoa!
She's Paris's older cousin.
Liz's full name is actually Liz Allen Osborne Allen Brandt Hilton.
Yeah. Now I could see Stan mixing up names and throwing in a Brandt or a Ross or something that obviously is of an established character already. But where did he pull Hilton out of?
Maybe he was in the hotel that weekend writing the script. I have no idea.
Right.
He was traveling to one of the colleges to give a Spider-Man speech.
Him and Steve were like having a really bad day, and like Steve was just sabotaging the book. He's like, "Oh, that blonde girl from Peter's school. What's her last name again?" And Steve's like, "It's Hilton."
So Liz Hilton, really Allen, but Hilton, but really Allen. But no, it's Hilton. She's walking she's walking briskly.
They don't even fix that in the reprints like they do with Brandt or Palmer.
I know. I have Hilton right in front of me. It's like, how do they miss this?
She's walking through the halls. She has her eyes closed the whole time that she's walking, actually. And she looks really upset. Peter tries to talk to her, but she blows him off. She seems to be sad, though, more than angry. He runs into Flash, but when Peter tries to thank him for squaring things with Principal Davis, Flash tells him off. The senior classes let out early to get ready for graduation, and Peter sees Liz turn Flash down for a date. Not now, not tomorrow, not ever. Do I make myself clear? Peter then goes to the home of Spencer Smythe to retrieve his...
First time we get his first name.
Oh, yes it is. So Spencer Smythe, to retrieve his costume that was lost to Smythe's robot back in issue 25. Although, I wrote these notes before I read the annual. The annual calls Smythe's robot the Jonah robot. So I may switch back and forth between those names as I read through my synopsis here. So yeah, we're getting the costume. We lost that. It's been several issues now. This is issue 28.
Didn't Josh say the last time that when he says, I'll find something to do with this old costume, that they never come back to it? Or am I imagining that?
Did he say that at the end of 25, that he would find something to do with the old
In the last issue, in the Crime Master issue, he says, that's it, I'm through with this stupid costume. And he's like, but I might find a use for it. And then I think Bertone said that, they'll never come back to that.
I think that meant that he was going to sew one, you mean?
The one because in here, spoilers, he switches it for the real one in Smythe's laboratory.
Yeah, he swaps out his shrunken store-bought costume for the real one so that Smythe won't notice that one's missing.
Yeah, spoilers for an issue that's 45 years old.
I just thought that there was some kind of like a controversy, like him actually not doing it with it, but I don't know. Probably go ahead.
It's okay. So as Peter enters the house, there's a brief problem with the Jonah robot snaring him in its tentacles. Because, of course, Peter Parker is Spider-Man, and the robot is set to grab anything spidery. But Peter has brought an alibi with him. He has a jar of spiders in his jacket, and he pulls it out, saying that that's why the robot grabbed him.
Mm-hmm.
My robot would never act that way unless it sensed something spidery nearby.
That's a great adjective.
The doc also makes a comment here that I should have known a teenager like you couldn't be the mysterious Spider-Man.
Irony.
Irony.
Oh.
So, is there a reason why Peter comes into his lab with the jar gift wrapped? I mean, can he just walk in with the jar and say, "Look, I've got spiders for you"?
Well, if he did that, then Smythe might grab them right away. So then if the robot grabbed Peter and Peter wasn't holding it, he wouldn't have an alibi.
I guess.
Okay.
Or to keep the spiders from seeing the outside world and getting scared as he was traveling.
What was he like? Did he like spend all afternoon looking for spiders like in a jar? And
Dude, he just called him on the phone. I mean, he's
just
Spider.
Spider-Sense, of course.
he doesn't get those powers till 2004.
I know. I just like to forget that.
He called Hank Pym up and said, "Hey, Hank, can you get some spiders over here?"
Us wasps have a general dislike of spiders in general. Not a real wasp, honey.
And also, we've talked in previous issues about the world knowing Spider-Man is a teenager. But it looks like not everyone knows, because...
As it should be. I don't like the fact that, when the thing goes, "Oh, that galloping teenager Spider-Man," I just want to, smack his rock face when he says
What will we do when Spider-Man becomes an adult? He'll be even more powerful.
And yet it's never explained. How would they even know?
Because his voice is so muffled by the mask, as proved by the latest episode that John proved it.
That was my little experiment during the episode there.
Latest released episode, for the record.
Yeah, there are going to be several last episode references in this because there's a month gap between recordings and releases. But that's okay.
Yeah. Thank you for making me feel unwelcome.
I'm sorry. You're welcome, Eddie.
All right.
At least we didn't, make you stay up late like we did with Stephen Lacey.
Well, see, that's the advantage I have being on the West Coast. It's not late for me.
Exactly. You still have sunlight right now.
Fading sunlight.
Yeah.
We're in the blood of night.
So Peter swaps out his costume in Smythe's drawer with the shrunken store... I can't say that stupid word.
Shrunken store-bought costume for my old one. After all, it does belong to me, using his Bruce Wayne logic from Batman Begins.
Right. And as he gets ready to leave, he sees Smythe being shoved around by a guy called Raxton. They're fighting over a really big jar of yellow liquid, which, we can tell from the dialogue has like a metallic, really thick texture, but otherwise a really big jar of yellow liquid, I wouldn't exactly want to fight over that. But this is some sort of liquid metal alloy that Smythe and Raxton had developed together, but that Raxton now wants to sell at auction and take all the money for himself. In the course of Raxton's and Smythe's scuffle, Smythe knocks against a control panel, causing two things to happen. First, all these really weird, laserish kind of things come on. Because that's totally safe to have set up in your house.
Science!
Science! I was doing my science earlier, leave me alone. And also the Jonah robot is powered on, so that as Peter moves to help Smythe, he's captured in the tentacular wonder, with no spider jar alibi this time.
And after the fight's over, he's like, "Actually, I brought a second jar of spiders."
It's a good thing I have it.
He's got 6 jars in his pocket, just for such an emergency.
Don't forget
Pulls him out of his jacket.
the matchbox he has in his sock,
He goes to the Daily Bugle later. Betty's like, "Is that a spider jar in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me?" Actually, it's 6 spider jars.
You're not happy to see
All
me.
stacked up.
Did Liz Allen give those to you?
Wow.
I'm gonna go talk to Ned Leeds.
Put something in his pocket.
Okay, so phallic spider jaw references aside, Raxton punches Smythe again because Smythe's a wuss and he just kind of takes it. But holding the jar brings Raxton off balance so that he falls into a laser. And the jar bursts and all the liquid metal pours all over Raxton as the laser beams blast him too.
Well, I have a question. Obviously, Raxton comes across as some 2-bit hood, but yet it said that they created it together. He
I
created it
was
with
gonna ask that.
Smythe.
Yeah.
What the heck could he have possibly done?
I think he has Ben Grimm syndrome, that after his transformation, he loses half of his intelligence.
I think
just
it's like
figured that he was like a 2-bit lab assistant, and Smythe probably got him from like some
Some work release
rehabilitation,
program?
some
Prison program?
Yeah, he's out of work. He's
he
going through
he
the
gets like a check for the government, or something.
So we get a panel that's sort of a riff on the cover image, as Raxton's skin absorbs the liquid metal, all glowy and laser flashy, and he's so.
Sorry, there's a lot of really visual things. I might add sound effects that you can always cut out if you feel like.
No, it's fine. It's some really cool art. I mean, it's definitely Ditko going having fun with it. And Raxton is so dazed by the events that he doesn't even notice Peter caught by the robot, but instead he staggers
And
out.
doesn't notice the fact that his clothes don't have liquid metal all over him, just his skin.
Right.
But his pants, his jacket, and his tie and his shirt are relatively unaffected.
They're polyester.
No. No, it's a plot hole. You can't fill a plot hole with a bunch of leaves and say that it's the ground. It's a plot hole.
Teflon?
It's Stan Lee logic.
Yes, right.
So Raxton's staggering out to find medical help, and Peter uses his web shooter to tag the switch that disables the Jonah robot. Just in time, too, as Smith comes to consciousness right then. We would not want... Oh, yeah, Smythe. We would not want Smythe to see, Peter wrapped up in the robot's tentacles, because that would just be too suggestive. Smythe bemoans the loss of the alloy, but gives Peter Raxton's address so he can notify the police. Peter does not notify the police. He goes on himself. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, Raxton is crossing the street when a motorist gives him a hard time for moving too slowly. Raxton reacts by smacking the car, but instead of actually smacking the car, he really pounds it, causing more serious damage than he intended to.
Wonk.
But he quickly realizes the metal has made him super strong. He flips the vehicle and begins terrorizing the crowd. Metal freak terrorizes. One thing he says here is, "I've become an actual molten man."
Or what?
And yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
This is okay. I can I say something real quick. This is always what confused me about Molten Man. Is he super hard like a golden statue, or is he like a fiery lava kind of person? Because in the is it the Conrad run where he attacks Liz? Like they pull that stuff where he's like melting, and I never understand what his deal is.
It was because his condition changed like a few times. Like there's been a few times where he's like caught on fire.
Right.
Well, why is he caught on fire? It's just liquid, right?
Right. In that later storyline, like you were saying, there is a point where he injures Spider-Man because he grabs him and literally burns his arm or his shoulder. So, yeah, he goes from being hard metal to like lava.
But
I'm pretty sure that it was explained in story though that like he had like mutated or there was a change in his condition because at the end of
we'll probably just get to it in another 60 episodes. So
yeah,
no spoilers.
I just question it because it goes. I understand like the idea of a molten man that kind of has fire connotations, but you're going from a liquid metal to something that's flammable that just confuses me.
Well, okay, we have a liquid metal, and you could use the word molten to apply to that because molten means literally melted. But then he becomes super hard. So in this issue, in just this issue where he gets his name, there's nothing molten man at all about Mark Raxton's condition. He's more like, the Tin Wood Man, not the Molten Man.
He's like a golden man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But he's definitely not melting. He's standing up straight and tall, as you like.
He's shining all over.
Ooh, shiny.
As you do.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's okay, though. We can't change it now. It's too late. It's already gone off to the printers 40-odd years ago. Peter is suited up as Spider-Man now, heading for Raxton's apartment, and he sees the wreck that Raxton has left behind. Raxton finds a hat in an alley. And I guess it's the same magical hat that Norman Osborn was using back in issue 17, because it covers his face in shadow just perfectly, allowing him to make it home unhindered. There must have been some magic in that old silk hat he found. Sorry.
Nice.
He then starts packing so he can light out to a hideout. I didn't mean that to rhyme. and plan some crimes, as you do, I guess.
It's his apartment.
Yeah, he goes to the apartment and starts packing, so he can find a hideout later.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the fact that all of a sudden, I'm covered in metal, so instead of worrying about my lifespan, I'm going to start, stealing money.
Isn't your like family rich? Doesn't your like?
Oh,
I
yeah.
understand. Now, when Stanley wrote this, Liz Hilton or Allen or Brandt or whatever her last name is this issue, like they were not related when Stanley wrote this. That was a retcon about 100 issues later. But
do they have the same mother or father? I forgot which.
Yeah, in hindsight though, like your family's rich. Yeah.
So he's not related to Mr. Brandt?
No, he's not related to Mr. Brandt, Mr. Allen. I guess since they're step siblings, they're not actually related by blood at all. But that Liz's mother married into the Raxton family at some point.
Or maybe no, because then it would be her half brother. So yeah, that would have to be her stepbrother.
Right.
I was about to say, yeah.
Genealogy is confusing. That's why you should never get divorced.
That's confusing genealogy.
Right. So Spider-Man comes in through the window, and of course they start fighting. Even you can't stop me. I've got the power of molten metal.
That's not a power. That's an element.
You should have told me sooner. I'd have baked a cake. What is?
I love that. That's a good quip.
What does that even mean? The power of molten metal. I don't understand anymore.
It's an element, not a power. I have the power of wooden tables. I have the power of wet liquid. I have the no. These aren't. You're describing.
I have the power of breezy air conditioning.
I mean, no wonder that first Spider Slayer didn't work. I mean, my God, this is Spencer Smythe's lab assistant. Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, look at that design.
Whenever you call it Jonah Robot, you make it sound like it's like a life model decoy of J. Jonah Jameson.
I'm just writing what Stan Lee wrote. I mean, let me just make sure that that's correct.
Because like when you think of like his face, that mirror, and calling it Jonah Robot, that's awesome.
I just need to make sure. I'm going to go look at the gallery now to make sure I'm not, totally being wrong on this. But
no, you're right, because I looked at it.
Yeah, it's Jonah's robot. Okay, well, still, same thing. It's the Jonah robot. That's just how it is now. So they start fighting, and Mark Raxton pretty much gets naked during the fight. I guess it's more fun that way.
And can I make a comment about this?
No,
I think it's page 12. He rips off his pant legs and said, "Since you're in costume, I'll create a similar effect. There, from now on, everyone will recognize the Molten Man." Yeah, nice Daisy Dukes, pal. I mean, how is that a costume? You ripped your pant legs off, that's a costume?
It's the same as the Hulk's costume.
Well, that's the only person that's gotten away with it, is the Hulk. That's not a costume.
Once again, no nipples.
Yeah. Well, apparently, the molten liquid melted those off.
I was thinking the exact same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, who needs nipples whenever they're covered in metal anyway? It's not like they're going to work after that.
Everyone will recognize the Molten Man, because the bare molten chest and face, would have made them think that it was, the Green Goblin.
I just keep on looking at this guy, and I guess that the liquid is supposed to make him super strong, which makes his body, his physique more, impressive. But I just keep on thinking, this is like the biggest villain since Electro, where this really should have killed him.
Yeah. You just got
powers? No, he should be dead.
I mean, it was liquid at room temperature, so even the word molten is misleading because that implies that it's supposed to be solid and instead it's burning hot liquid. No, it's like mercury. That's why
exactly.
It's just liquid at room, and to me that would mean it's poisonous because it's going to get into your pores, and you shouldn't have metal in your bloodstream besides the trace elements. So yeah,
right. And he even says that where is it? That I feel as though the alloy is sinking right into my bloodstream.
I guess the bijou power made it safer, but I don't know.
Oh yeah,
maybe.
I just like making that sound effect. Can you tell?
Yeah.
I want to have some of those in my house. I want to have them installed. When we get a house, we're not living in apartment land anymore. I'm gonna get some big old lasers.
And how does he have all that stuff in his house? Because it says that Peter Parker goes to his house. I mean, there's not zoning law to live an area for having all that crazy stuff in your house. I mean, that's like living next to a crack house. It can blow up any minute.
This is what he did with Jonah Jameson's money that he paid for the robot recently.
He's super trainers neighbor.
But how is it that there's no laws against having that kind of equipment in a home?
There's no laws against, a man keeping a costume. So
it was the 60s. He could find people.
Yeah. According to issue
It was
21.
the 60s. Everybody had that stuff. Yeah.
Lasers R Us. Installations free.
We are destroying this issue like nothing makes sense.
And the thing is, I like this issue. I like the fight with the Molten Man. I like the story, and we're going to get to the graduation in a minute. But yeah, we're ripping all kinds of holes in it.
Yeah, you put four intelligent, educated men together, and you get, even with an issue that they love. You're like,
I don't know about that.
Yeah, I'm not counting four. Who are you talking about? No, just kidding. Go ahead.
Me times four. No. But it's like, this really doesn't make any sense. The no nipples, no death, no mercury, no nothing.
Stupid costume.
No clothes. Okay,
Dukes.
this clearly went all over his body, but it did not affect his clothes.
Well, that's why I ripped it off, so it could show you that it did.
He could feel it seeping into his bloodstream. How do you feel something going into your blood? How do you feel that? Like, does he have like the most body awareness of anyone?
Well, I'm thinking I'm just thinking if he ever did Multi-Man live action, he would look like he would be like painting like bronze spray graffiti or whatever. This is like the silliest thing.
He really is like that.
If they ever did a live action version of the Molten Man, he would look lousy like the Silver Surfer in the last Fantastic Four movie.
Who's that old pulp character that was in Marvel? Was it somebody with the name Bronze in the name? Dr. Bronze?
Oh, Doc Savage.
Man of Bronze.
Doc Savage.
Doc Savage, the Man of Bronze. Yeah. So this is him, only a superhero.
Yeah, pretty
Supervillain.
much.
And not awesome.
And not awesome. We must remember to include the not awesome bit.
That's what we're talking about, freaking Matt. He's so happy about it. He's like, I can do anything because I have this dangerous chemical in my body.
I'm not going to die in 2 hours.
He should have a stroke like right now.
So, in the course of the fight, Spider-Man's punches and webbing don't do much for him because, of course, this metal is also Teflon. And
of course.
Slides off. And I can understand the punches not hurting because he's like punching metal. But they do make their way into a cellar over the course of the fight, and Spider-Man douses the overhead lamp. So they're fighting in the dark, like on the cover. Very cool. And Spider-Man takes advantage of the darkness to form some really thick cords with his webbing. He manages to get some cord loops over all of Molten Man's limbs, and he binds them together for the police's arrival. I know it's kind of clever on Spidey's part, but it almost seems like a little bit of a letdown of an ending. Like, I can't beat him, so I'll just tie him up when he's not looking. I don't know what y'all think about that.
Well, this and the Catbird issue are just like, examples of issues where I really don't think that the supervillain aspect is the most interesting part. So it didn't really matter to me.
Well, what I'm wondering is, at this point, here the police arrive at the end of the fight. What are the police going to do with him? They can't untie him because then he'll just take off or beat up the police. Are they just going to just drag him down the stairs to the police car?
And the webbing's going to dissolve.
And the webbing's going to dissolve. What do they do with him?
You just pistol whip him.
Like rhino tranquilizer or something, or like taser him.
Well, I'm assuming any
metal?
kind of tranquilizer you gotta do with the needle, and they're not going to get through his skin.
They can
I just think that because he's in the corner, I think they just like pistol whip him until he falls unconscious and throw him in jail.
Jonah must have had a field day with this. Like, respected business, community member, gets like stripped half naked by Spider-Man and then hogtied, half naked for the police. I mean, that's like, I'm sorry. Like, this is like very SMM. Spider-Man's like grabbing the half naked guy by the chest and like tying him up by his hands and feet and leaving him in the fetal position for the cops.
The only thing missing is a spider hump count.
Is a what?
A spider hump count.
Spider hump, yes.
Look at
on page 16.
On page 16.
Yeah, fourth panel.
Up,
yeah,
like it.
Take a picture of that Peter Parker and put it on the Daily Beagle. Spider-Man, freak.
Wow, that's kind of scary. Okay, so Peter leaves the scary Molten Man tied up, leaves him and hurries home to get ready for graduation. Aunt May and Anna Watson attend the ceremony, of course. They see him in his cap and gown, all pretty. Though Peter notes that Betty is not in attendance and wonders if she's still mad at him for provoking Jameson and over the whole Smythe robot issue.
You gotta be kidding me.
Are we assuming that Betty's on a date with Ned right now since he shows up next issue?
She probably showed up to the graduation and saw that Liz was there, and she's like, "So Peter invited Liz Allen to his graduation." And it's like, and then
What is she doing
Aunt May
here?
was there with Anna Watson. She's like, "Oh, Miss Brandt, this is Anna Watson, Mary Jane's niece." It's like, and Mary Jane's family is. Oh, that's it.
I really hate the fact that Betty's not here. I find that really like we've kind of deconstructed Betty Brant over the last few months. Yeah, no, that's like seriously. There's no excuse for that. I mean, at least for Aunt May of all people, just that's really mean. I think that's really mean.
That was low. To kind of like mirror that. And when Peter graduates from college in the Wolfman run, Betty does show up. But Peter was going through a breakup at the time with Mary Jane, and Mary Jane skipped out on his graduation. Nice. And Peter, like, makes like a comment about that, like, oh, maybe graduations offend her or something. But Betty, like, made up for it by showing up to the college graduation. Of course, then she was trying to get back into Peter's pants. So
refresh my memory, though. Didn't Peter not graduate from college because he was shy, like a credit or two, and then he had to
he didn't know that until the very end of the issue.
But he did get the credit. He did get the diploma.
All right.
He has a should have had a V8 panel where he smacks his head. Don't one lousy gym credit.
Yeah.
It was like a phys ed thing too, wasn't it? Like the one thing that he does every single day, he didn't get credit for.
Irony.
There you go. We're gonna have to break out the irons.
Yeah, but Betty not showing up, I don't think that it has anything to do with Ned. I think that she was legitimately mad at him for the events of issues 25 and 26, and that was really low of Betty, But it's ironic that every time Peter's had a graduation, he's been on the outs with his current girlfriend, and the current girlfriend skips said graduation.
I've been on the outs with my girlfriends every single graduation. Wait,
another thing that happened in both.
You just like totally ignored me, kept on going.
No, another thing that happens in both graduations is the dean or principal, whoever is doing it, introduces the keynote speaker, who's the same person each time.
Yeah. Speaking of the ceremony. Before we get to the keynote speaker, we learned that both Flash Thompson and Peter Parker have been awarded scholarships to attend Empire State University in New York City, which, by the way, is not real.
Are you sure?
New York City's real, but the university's not. I've heard that New York City's real anyway. I take it on faith.
I'm with you, John. I grew up on the West Coast. I had no idea that it wasn't real. I just assumed all this time that it was.
You're my new best friend, Eddie.
He'll be coming back.
And now I introduce you to our new regular co-host. So Flash, of course, gets his scholarship in athletics, and Peter in science.
Science!
Jonah Jameson now gives a speech, which makes absolutely nobody happy. And I love how, like, by this point in the series, no one in New York City likes Jonah Jameson anymore.
I like the fact that he's not even been mentioned or appeared in this episode issue so far. It's like, and now to give this keynote speech, Jonah Jameson is like out of nowhere. It's like, why is he there? The paper guy. They couldn't get the mayor. They couldn't get like a, I don't know.
Well, they did get the mayor.
The what? Oh! I see what you did there.
Yeah, he is the mayor.
But bum.
Well, it's okay, because if you want foreshadowing, Jonah flirts with his stepmom in this issue.
Yeah, that disgusted me too.
What?
He flirts with his stepmom.
Jonah flirts with his stepmom?
Yes.
No.
Yes.
Daughter-in-law, right?
Mother and...
No, because his father marries Aunt May, and Aunt May would be his stepmother.
It would be his stepmother. Jonah Jameson is flirting with his future...
Oh, yeah, you're right. Stepmother, right.
There's all kinds of sex going on here.
This is like a crazy family issue, because we have Molten Man, who's like Liz's secret brother, and then, Liz doesn't know her own family last name, and neither does Peter, and then, Jonah's flirting with his future stepmom, and then Anna Watson isn't sure if, Mary Jane's her niece or her daughter. It's like, it's a crazy family issue.
So as we said, after the ceremony, Jonah finds Peter, and he does get to meet Aunt May. And they hit it off, and Jonah starts, bringing on the charm. Peter goes and finds Liz, and he tries to find out what's wrong, but all we get is, my feeling for you was more than just liking Petey. I had a crush on you, but you always seem to be other girls, Betty Brant and Mary Jane Watson. And Peter has the most awesome expression on his face right here. It's like, oh my God, is this all that's bothering you?
Yeah, Dick was like,
Wait, you had a crush on me? This is a shocking revelation, Liz.
You always thought of me as just a ditzy blonde, and perhaps I am. But it's time for me to graduate out of that part of my life also. Like you can stop being a ditzy blonde on command. I mean, no offense to the ditzy blondes in the audience. I'm just saying, you can't just change that overnight.
But has Peter ever treated her or said anything to her to give her the impression that he thinks she's stupid?
I don't think so. He's given her...
if anything, she's the one that's always given him grief.
Well, teenage girl, she probably made that impression herself. That he thinks...
There's that web spinner story that, tried to give the reason why Liz was mad at him, even though, the reason's given in the Crime Master storyline. It's impossible to fit into the chronology. Really impossible because there's so many errors, trying to fit it in. But in the story, Peter asks Liz out to prom just to, get under Flash's skin. But then he realizes, oh, wait, I asked Betty to prom also, and Aunt May wants me to take Mary Jane, so I got to dump 2 of these girls. So, in front of the whole, school at this, fight that he's about to have with Flash, Peter says, Liz, I'm uninviting you to prom, and she slaps him.
Are you talking about the 7 through 9 web spinners
supposedly
story? Are you talking about
Okay,
I looked that up to see when it's supposed to happen. And theoretically, it fits in between pages 16 and 17 of this issue. So between the Molten Man
But it doesn't.
I know it doesn't, but that's somebody's theory. After the Molten Man fight, there's actually a period of time before we get to the graduation scenes from page 17 on. And that's when the 7 through 9 web spinners story happens. Theoretically. But that would negate the caption that says, but a short time later this happens.
A short time later.
There's a lot of things that make sense because of Peter's relationship with Betty doesn't fit in with what was going on in the chronology, but it does have a great scene where Peter and Betty are driving together and he talks about how he doesn't want to be stuck working at the Daily Bugle for the rest of his life like Betty is, and Betty kicks him out of the car in the middle of the road.
What an idiot. He had that coming.
But I guess those problems later.
And it wasn't even it wasn't even a subtle thing. He snapped at her. He's like, yeah, how about I work at the Bugle for the rest of my life like you? The next panel, Peter standing on the side of the road drives away.
Oh, no, you didn't. But I guess the continuity issues are the problems with the research of the web spinners writer. Because this story is totally intact and makes complete sense.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, man.
Except Liz is wearing white, which, we all know what she did to Flash Thompson. Don't wear white, Liz. We all know.
Ooh.
Oh, is she wearing white? What color are their gowns? Are they white?
White for the girls and blue for the boys.
Although Peter's... No, he's not wearing white. That's just a miscoloring in one panel. Never mind. One panel's miscolored with him in a white gown, but unless he's cross-dressing for that one page, I don't know.
Well, we don't get Betty Brant, but we do get Mr. Brant.
Yes. So Liz leaves before Peter can talk to her more. She goes off in her fit of upset. She goes off with her dad, Mr. Brandt, or Hilton, or Alan, or Alan.
Or Stark.
Who knows what his name is. Or Jameson, I don't know.
By the way, Liz, we didn't want to ruin your graduation, but we think that Spider-Man may have sexually assaulted your brother earlier today.
Wow.
Boy, what else can happen today?
This whole mystery of the identity of Liz's dad, what his last name is, reminds me of the season 1 cliffhanger of South Park, where you don't know who Cartman's dad is, and it's this whole thing of I don't know, for some reason that pops into my head here, but I guess that's just me. So Liz leaves before Peter can talk to her more, and she goes off with her dad, Mr. Brandt or Hilton or Alan or who knows what his name is, and I'm guessing that Liz, I don't know, this whole upset thing kind of comes out of nowhere. I'm guessing maybe she just had a big cry about all this recently, the truth of her love life hit her like a ton of bricks as she saw high school ending, that, she's basically gone nowhere. Because this doesn't seem to be a sham. She seems actually upset that Peter never did give her a tumble, to coin a phrase. And
I love this scene, though. I mean, it's so much better than, manic, hysterical Betty Brant running away all the time. She's just, she's not even crying. She just looks really, really sad and looking down, but she's still kind of, going about her business. It's much more realistic than you would think.
Would you have guessed in issue 7 that we would actually be more sympathetic to Liz Allen than we are to Betty Brant by this point?
Yes.
Oh, I don't see any problem with that at all. I mean, Betty Brant is like a complete psycho, self-obsessed lunatic at this point. She's nuts. She's completely batty.
True that.
And maybe I'm a little too far from my teenage years, but I don't get Liz's thought process here of, well, it's more than just a liking. I've got a crush on you. Okay, now I can never see you again. I don't get that. If she really likes him, why can't she like make her feelings known and maybe try to pursue something with him?
I think she just gave up. I think she gave up on the
She did make her.
possibility of Peter. Because I think when we go back to that fight that Peter had with Flash and his friends, I think she saw that Peter was so concentrated on what they thought and everything, and he never. I think that kind of clicked that he never really paid much attention in like the last maybe like past 12 issues of comic books, which would be how long? Who knows how long in the actual comic book continuity? And so I think that was like okay, he really doesn't like me anymore. It's tough, but I got to deal with this and move on, even though I still like him right now. I think.
Well, I'm sure Josh will chime in here with some kind of untold tales where something did happen that I know nothing about.
You do listen to the show.
Well, maybe like her brother, like being arrested, is part of what's bringing her down.
That could be
Like
it.
she's on her way to graduation, and like, hey Liz, your brother was found half naked and there's gold covered in his body.
Half
time
naked
to
and covered in gold.
Again.
I don't even want to know the context behind that, but I just know that Betty Brant's behind it.
But see, Liz actually, I'm looking back, I'm trying to think back on Liz. She...
Liz retrospective.
Dun, 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 dun,
Okay,
dun,
setting
dun.
aside the future crazy directions she goes, marrying the Green Goblin and everything, and becoming daughter-in-law to the Conqueror of Asgard, she was Flash Thompson's girlfriend, so she made fun of Peter a lot. And then she sort of had a change of heart and began to kind of take a liking to Peter. She was very catty around Betty, definitely. But not insanely so, not unreasonably so, just the kind of thing that teenage girls do when they're fighting over a boy, because I have so much experience there. And I don't know, she just seems like an actual, real, human kind of individual to me. I kind of...
It's also the fact that as much as we bring up the fact that Betty Brant is a teenager, it's really hard to visualize her as a teenager just by the way she's written, the way she comes off in the comic book. I mean, are they explicitly stated that Betty is a teenager?
Not on the page. Not at this point.
So I think that like that backwards BS explanation Stanley had is, oh, she's younger than Peter. I think that's really like an afterthought, and they were writing her as a not a middle-aged woman, but an older woman who was really, because if you think back to a lot of old time 50s stuff, the woman is always in a lot of stories, the more emotional one, the more like one to jump to conclusions. And Betty, I think, is written not as a girl but as a teenager, and I think that's what they're kind of going for.
Well, I always got the impression that Betty was a teenager, but kind of maybe like a year or two removed from high school, like out in the workforce, but still maybe like 18 or 19.
Yeah, that's the impression. That's the explanation that Stan gave in the back of a book once, but it's never been said on the page exactly how old she is.
In the back of his ass, yeah.
But
He said that she was younger than Peter, but that was like to.
Yeah, you're right. They said that she was actually a year behind Peter, but she had dropped out, which I don't even know if that's legal at this point in history, but whatever.
It's 50 years ago,
It's 50.
Nothing's legal anymore.
Oh, I know what's legal. Oh yeah.
This is like sob story. It's so like, I had a crush on you, Peter, but you always paid more attention to Betty Brant, your actual girlfriend. It's like, yeah.
Well, okay. Here's my thing on that. I have excuses for everything. Betty, not only is she a teenager, but she's she's popular. She has wealth. I think she probably saw
mean
that.
Liz?
Oh yeah, Liz Allen, Hilton Allen. She's I think she's one of those teenage girls who's like kind of kind of like how Spectacular Spider-Man was. How does he not go after me and go after other girls? Like she's like, what does he see in her? And that after a while kind of got to her confidence and maybe, I don't know, affected it somehow. I'm just kind of rationalizing like the teenage aspect of her personality and putting that on a lot of things.
So you're trying to get into the mind of a crazy teenage girl? Good luck.
It's an old hat, my friend.
Before we feel too sorry for Liz Allen, let's remember, she was dating Flash Thompson, but in public and in front of Flash's friends, she would make a play for, by all accounts, Flash's worst enemy and rival, and then insult Flash Thompson's intelligence and brains to his face in front of his friends in public as well. So yeah, there was that, and then but then at the end of the day, she would still date him, but then embarrass him in front of his friends and make plays for other people's in front of him.
Well, in my household, I call that marriage.
Well, hey, give that man a cigar.
No wonder Harry Osborn cracked up so much. I mean, it wasn't the abusive father; it was the crazy wife.
Right.
It's like,
So you're saying the problems of all men come from women? Is that what you're saying?
The problems from Marvel
Damn,
men come from women. Have you seen Marvel Girlfriends? My God,
Is that like a porn movie? What are you talking about? Marvel Girlfriends? I'm sorry.
I mean, look at who we've been talking about the last
that introduction right away.
No, I mean Doris Evans. My God, no wonder Johnny Storm didn't just burn New York to the ground one day. And then and then of course Alicia Masters, who's like, no, Ben, I only like you when you're ugly and hideous and everyone else hates you. I'm the only one who appreciates the real you. Don't you dare try and make yourself look better.
I only love you whenever you don't love yourself.
Exactly.
I mean, you're only okay whenever you're not okay.
So you're saying that the role of women, wives, and girlfriend in the Marvel Universe is to wear down their men into tiny little nubs?
Yes.
They have.
Wow.
But no, Liz was a horrible person in The Flash, and the Peter as well. It was, let's not.
Okay. Well, okay. Horrible. Probably yes. I would say that Betty's worse because Betty's she's more psychological. I mean, Liz is annoying and she did that, but that's what a teenage girl would do. Betty is like, okay, who's a teenager as well. It's like, oh, I'll date you tomorrow, Peter. You cheater, you. I'm going on my date with Ned now. Bye. WTF?
So Liz, we could probably say that in some cases sometimes she's a little vindictive or spiteful, but Betty is just completely neurotic crazy. Breaks down for anything.
Sociopath.
Yeah.
Betty no longer is a functioning member of the human society.
Betty is a sociopath. That's very good. Betty operates in a world ruled by sociopathy.
Sociopathy. All right.
Yeah,
well, one thing completely unrelated to Liz, but to the graduation. What gets me is so many people are up in arms about the next Spider-Man movie. Oh, he has to be a teenager. He has to be a teenager in high school. He has to get back to his roots. That's the real Spider-Man. But out of, 640-some issues, only 28 was he actually in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I completely forgot about that. We should, yeah.
I mean, we haven't even gotten to the best Spidey of the 60s yet. I mean, we haven't really gotten to the heart of the Romita era and all Gwen Stacy and things that people really think about when they think about, this era of Spider-Man.
The brainwasher?
Yeah, well, there's the brainwasher. We'll just forget about that for a minute. But, I mean, I don't want to say maybe saying we haven't gotten to the best of the 60s is totally my own opinion, because everybody has, their opinion of what the best is. But Spider-Man...
No, I would agree with you there.
I mean, to me, the best eras of Spider-Man are the 60s and the 80s. And of the 60s, the
late
post-Ditko
60s
stuff, continues to improve. We have the Master Planner ahead of us. We have the Unmasking of the Green Goblin ahead of us. We have the Return of the Green Goblin. And all these other great stories that happen after he graduates high school.
Agreed.
True that.
Another completely unrelated to the graduation thing is that we finally have African-American people being colored with brown tones instead of gray pencils.
I appreciate that very much.
I do too.
Actually, in my version, they're so heavily inked. They're heavy shadow.
But all that white stuff in your copy is brown colored instead of gray, as opposed to the past issues where they were always gray.
Now, granted, back then the coloring process obviously was nowhere near as intricate and complex as it is now, and it was actually hard to get some certain flesh tone colors. So, similar to in Hulk #1 where he came out green, or Gabe Jones in the early Sergeant Fury issues, he came out gray. Once they kind of refined the process a bit, the colors were corrected better.
Yeah. Actually, the Hulk was intended to be green and accidentally came out gray. Is that right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say in my roundabout way.
Peter does rejoin his aunt after deconstructing Liz Allen and Betty Brant. And after all that time, she is still being regaled by her future stepson, his wonderful charm. Yes, the newspaper business is always exciting. Once I was even accused of being the Green Goblin. Oh dear.
Oh.
That's as ridiculous as accusing my nephew Peter of being Spider-Man.
Point to Josh.
Whoa, wait a minute. But it's not ridiculous. But Peter is Spider-Man. Oh, but Aunt May doesn't know. She doesn't realize the gold mine that she's sitting on. Wait a minute. To make matters even more ironic, the man who publishes photos of Spider-Man, who hates him, is regaling Spider-Man saying, "Oh, this is too much."
Oh.
It's even better than like a few pages ago when Peter was on his way to graduation and he says, "I wonder how many other fellows in my profession have to hurry home in time for their high school graduation." You could practically hear Stan Lee saying, "Hey, true believers, did you ever read an issue of Superman where Superman's aunt yelled at him for staying out late? Or an issue of Batman where he had to hurry home for his graduation? Ho, 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 only in Marvel."
Merry Marvel Marching Madness.
We talked in the JR unreleased episode, which is now released if you're hearing this, about the Green Goblin thing, and it fits so well into that plot hole. Because Crime Master, when he dies, like, his vault is supposed to be open, and everyone's supposed to know who the Green Goblin is, and that it's J. Jonah Jameson, but the vault was open and nothing ever happened. But since we know, like, from Untold Tales that Crime Master thought that it was Jameson, then we're to assume that between issue 28 and last issue, which was 27, the vault was open, the cops said, "Oh, Jameson's the Green Goblin." They probably accused him and investigated him, and he came clean. Because, the Green Goblin was in Nevada when Jonah was in New York. So this totally fits in a roundabout way.
It's very cool. Because Spider-Man's awesome, which is why we have this podcast. And our story ends with Peter escorting May and Anna back home. But, as with all of life, it isn't really an ending, but a beginning. The beginning of a new chapter in the life of the world's most amazing teenager. And of those whom fate has tossed into his web of destiny.
Da, da, da!
So before we get into all of our further discussions, a couple of things. This is the last appearance of Wilson Allen. And it's the only appearance of Doris Raxton Allen. She doesn't get a name here.
No, it isn't.
Really?
It's also...
She was in that web spinner story, and she was like a ditzy Stepford mom.
Oh, but my index was incorrect then. Okay, if you are listening to this podcast and you have a role in the official index of the Marvel Universe, check it out.
Yeah, Liz is like looking at her dress, and she's talking to her mom, and she's like, which actually doesn't make sense if that was like their second marriage, because she's like, "Your dad took me to prom, it was so wonderful." And like, you get the point that like this is just like one of those Stepford women who like doesn't have a brain anymore. She's just kind of operating on autopilot.
Okay,
And
Josh, I give you my title of comic book archival researcher at this point.
Oh my god. Peter has Dumbo ears in that bottom like panel of the story.
Kind of, yeah.
The Spider-Man eyes, they look like Dumbo ears.
Oh,
And,
yeah.
He looks
It's
like
also the last appearance of Spencer Smythe as a good character. Because next time he appears, he's a wacko.
Because, he goes crazy and then goes dead. And this is Principal Davis's last appearance for a while. He will show up again in 1995 in an issue of The Spectacular Spider-Man.
Clone Saga. Yep.
Yep, he was in the Clone Saga.
Number 225.
Oh, yes. Which we covered.
Okay, so, I don't think we talked about this much. What do we think of the Molten Man?
I think we did go.
I think we basically ripped him a new gold-covered sphincter.
Of the classically Ditko villains who are used over and over again, like the Scorpion and the Green Goblin and the Vulture, Electro, Molten Man, he was used very sparingly for a while, and he's been killed off a few times too. And then
There have been a couple of different Molten Men, haven't there?
Because
there was a Molten Man.
The guy in JMS's run, but that wasn't a Molten Man. He was just kind of similar.
Eddie Wiederman. Yeah.
There was a Molten Man that showed up in Civil War, like as a minor appearance, but I didn't know that was Raxton. But because the next time we see Raxton, he's been holed up in Liz Osborne's cellar for years. I don't know exactly what the story was supposed to be there.
Yeah, we find out that he and Liz are related, which I guess fits. It's like, oh, okay. That's a random relation, but like his motivation for like his next few appearances after that are always coming after Liz, and Liz being like, "No, keep him away from me." And then like finally in the late 80s or early 90s, there's a story where he's coming back again, and it plays off exactly like the last 3 or 4 Molten Man stories where like he's coming after Liz and Liz is hiding and Spider-Man goes after him and he's like, "Liz, I'm coming for you and I want $10,000." No, and then at the end he's like, "Liz, I've been paroled and I'd like $10,000 to get my life back together." Oh, this was just a misunderstanding. And then Harry's like, "I'll do better than that. I'll give you a job." And then they shake hands. And then like all of a sudden Molten Man's the good guy for a while. And like he's helping Liz run Osborn Industries after Harry dies. And
Spider-Man is filmed in front of a live studio audience.
I swear it's like this web issue. Like he's like, "Liz, I want $10,000. I need it in 24 hours. That is all." "Oh, Harry, what are we gonna do?"
That is all.
And then Spider-Man's fighting him, and like he's like, "No, you don't understand." But I'm not gonna explain it to you because that would mean that this comic would be like 3 pages long. So let's fight. "Liz, I want my money so I can put my life back together because I'm a responsible person now."
After I smack you around.
Even though I tried to, I don't know why you're so afraid of me. Could it be because I tried to murder you a few times? Like, there's one where at the end of like the issue, he's about to die because like a building's collapsing on him. He's like, "Liz, I don't want to die alone. Stay in the building with me, then we'll die together."
Yeah, is that the one where Liz comes back?
It's in Len Wein's run.
Yeah,
which
it was
is,
like 170 something, like 173 or something like
I
that.
remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he like follows her and Harry to New Jersey in the early Spectacular issues, which is actually the first time that you saw Harry and Liz after a few years, and it turned out that they had gotten married in between like issues.
Oh, really? You don't see the wedding?
No, you don't see the wedding. Like Peter's like, "I wonder what happened to Harry and Liz," and he calls Flash. He's like, "Yeah, they got married. Huh, it's a shame none of us were invited to the wedding. Oh well." That's really how it happens. Flash is like, "Yeah, I wasn't invited to the wedding either." So yeah, so then Molten Man, he's like literally like a supporting character who's like just this random gold person who appears in the background of like Osborn scenes without explanation, and a Spider-Man.
Liked that. I liked the '90s era Molten Man where he was a good guy. He would, like especially is it Spec 200 where there's that really weird scene with Harry and Liz and Molten Man and Spider-Man at the table, and Spider-Man's like, "Well, at least Braxton's got my back. I got some back up here." I like that interesting aspect of a villain who kind of reforms, but then they kind of rescind on that around Civil War for one reason or another.
Well, even there's been some even before Civil War in the reboot. They had like Molten Man was brainwashed and was like going through the city trying to kill Allison Mongrain. And then he like winds up killing her, and then like he passes out, and then like every few years, like now that's the new Molten Man thing. He'll be brainwashed by somebody to be a villain again. Like the Chameleon made him join the Deadly Foes of Spider-Man post Civil War by threatening Little Normie, and then for some reason, in Brand New Day era, he decided to like be a villain again because he didn't like Harry anymore. Like, yeah, that's really nice. Harry will, like, the one guy who gave you a job and, like, gave you a second chance after you were a criminal, try and murder him, sure. He's just visiting his ex-wife and his son. He's like, "How dare you visit your family who you abandoned?" Oh, this is interesting.
What's interesting?
What's up?
I'm looking at that web issue, and, like, we get a bigger history of the Molten Man, but apparently, okay... Liz is saying when we were kids, he and stepfather, my dad, were always fighting, and most of those fights were a result of Mark's temper. So yeah, this issue, it like tells you that it was Liz's dad who was Mark's stepdad, and that he left home after high school, and that Liz didn't hear from him again for years until Peter told her about the accident that he witnessed in Smythe's lab. So apparently, like, when this issue is happening, Liz hasn't spoken to Mark in years.
Okay, so does she even know that he's become the Molten Man at this point?
We can speculate that, like, maybe she heard about it, like, before graduation. Like, "Hey, remember that brother of yours who you haven't seen in years?"
Right.
Apparently, he just got arrested. That whole logic, it's okay to steal my costume because it's mine. That's, like, I find, first of all, that's stupid. That's like Batman Begins, where Bruce Wayne's like, "Aha, I'm stealing from my own company, but it's okay because it's my own company." Like, no, that's still stealing. That's not how. That's not how. And he's afraid of Smythe being suspicious, but what's Smythe going to think, when he looks and he sees that the costume's obviously been replaced? Because obviously you can tell the difference between the store-bought costume. And then when Braxton's falling into the machine, that's like, this guy is very, talkative as he's falling. As he's getting knocked into the machine, he has time to say, "The jar struck the wall. It broke. The liquid is all spilling out. That means we both lose. It was the only batch we produced. We'll have to start all over again." Either he said all that in the span of 1 second, or he was falling in slow motion because there's an anti-gravity machine.
He's like those guys at the end of radio commercials that shout out all the legal stuff in 3 seconds, in the really quick voice.
But see, Josh, you don't understand the power of the. It's like holding him in the middle of the air there.
Yeah.
with the Peter Parker costume thing, it's not like Smythe bought the costume. He technically stole it when he took that robot.
I know, but it's I just say they point out as if Stan's we don't want readers to complain that Peter's a thief, so let's have him say, haha, it's not stealing because it's really mine. I just hate that logic. You're not stealing something if it's yours. It's
this money's mine because I want it.
It's easy to explain why we didn't see Smythe again, because at the end of the Spider Slayer storyline, he talks about, back to the drawing board. So, let's say he's 6 months behind now. Then here, he's the research, it's all gone. All those long, weary hours wasted. So now if he's, 6 months behind on his research, now he's, 12 months behind. So that explains why we didn't see him for a while. But he seems, so calm about it.
Right.
What was the original intent of this molten alloy to begin with, that the two of them were working on together? What were they going to do with this?
It's a new Cheerios topping.
Salt to read riches for science.
To make the world a better place.
Exactly.
Okay, so I touched on this briefly in my little family rant, but Anna Watson calls Mary Jane her daughter here. I can't wait to go home and tell my daughter Mary Jane about it.
Stan just doesn't remember anything.
No.
I mean, wait, is she talking about Liz Hilton there?
Yeah, I mean, and it's kind of implying that Mary Jane is living with Anna Watson, which, again, at this point in continuity, it's not really continuity error, because it's retcon years later that Mary Jane's just visiting from New Jersey all the time. Or not New Jersey, Pittsburgh. So yeah, that's it. We do get foreshadowing for Ned Leeds' return, because they're the Scorpion returns, and another familiar face you shall see when your eager eyes behold the wonderment.
Yay. Yay, wonderment.
I would speculate the idea that the Molten Man was purely a Steve Ditko creation, because after issue 35, you don't see him used at all by Stan. So I got to think that Stan either had no interest in him, or he just had no hand in creating him.
That's interesting.
Well, Stan also ignored the Scorpion for a long time too. After 29, we don't see the Scorpion again.
And it very well could be the case there too, because probably a lot of the villains that you see in the later run of Steve Ditko's, Steve probably created a lot of them, and Stan probably just thought, "What the heck is this?" and never used them, because at that point they probably pretty much weren't really working together much.
I can imagine him saying that for the Molten Man, as we've demonstrated through the science, but the Scorpion seems like it would be a very Dick or a very Lee-esque kind of thing, but I don't know.
Well, I could see, because villains like the Molten Man, how much can you really do with him? And the Scorpion, hey, I have an idea. Let's do a story where the Scorpion comes back and he tries to kill J. Jonah Jameson, but get this, the only one that can save Jonah is his worst enemy, Spider-Man. You can only do that story 900 times before it gets boring.
True.
I was going to say something about Liz again. There's a difference between Liz Allen, the Steve Ditko teenage high school Liz Allen, because, we see her once, in between Peter, in the summer before he starts college, but there's a stark difference between her in every issue before this and then her after you see her, because I think this is the only issue where I think you see the Liz Allen of the modern era, despite the fact that the major opinion of Liz Allen's character is the high school cheerleader girlfriend or / love interest of Peter Parker. And I think it's interesting that, her character is mainly, in the comics continuity, what she is after this issue, but the major opinion is everything up to this issue, which is an interesting kind of contradiction, I think. I don't know if you guys agree with that or not.
I think it's just really neat that we get a really good human moment from her here. That she's not putting on airs, she's not trying to make a front, as a cheerleader girlfriend kind of person. I don't know.
She's just kind of coming clean at this point, just being herself finally.
I think that it's a very like Marvel and like I don't want to say realistic because that sounds pretentious, but
Believable.
Believable thing that when Peter's graduating high school, it's not going to be like like a sitcom or something where he's in college with all the same people who he went to high school with. Like Liz is moving on, and she's actually not in the comic for about 100 issues. I think that makes sense. I mean, really, there's the only characters who were developed from Peter's high school, though, were Flash and Liz, though. So
Right. And Seymour. Seymour got this huge character arc over the next, 20, 30 years.
Oh, yeah.
and Sally Averill.
Right. Sally Averill, superhero. Wait, I mean,
Super
what is she
corpse.
doing right now? I mean, I know that
She's
we have
still dead.
Oh, that's when she's dead.
There's actually like in the Marvel Masterworks reprint of this issue where Peter's like, oh, Betty's not here. He's like, Sally's not here either. And then we see like Peter think about Sally and how she's dead and stuff.
Yeah.
Still-
And she's buried next to Farley Stillwell, who was also dead.
Yeah, Sally Averill still dead.
It's on her tombstone.
Well, this obviously was the first issue where that little Pop Art Productions logo appeared. And I don't know if it's common knowledge or any of you know, but at this point, Marvel was actually trying to change their name from Marvel Comics to Marvel Pop Art Productions. But it
Make an official
failed
name
miserably.
change, not just...
I
Yeah,
never knew that.
they were actually trying to change the name, and that's why this logo appears. But it was a lousy attempt to change the name that completely failed within a few issues.
Yeah.
And it went nowhere.
And there's a
But
blurb about that in the Spider's Web. I can read here just so we can see what they were saying to the public. at the
Really
time.
pretentious blurb.
Yeah.
Have you noticed the change in the trademark which appears in the left-hand corner of our cover? So many of you frantic fans have objected to calling our Marvel mags comics, that we felt we just had to come up with a better name. And so, from now on, you are no longer reading comic books when you read our little masterpieces. Instead, you're reading a pop art book. Remember, from now on, brand X, Y, and Z are comic books. But when you buy a Marvel mag, you ask for a Marvel pop art book. We'll be checking on you, so don't let us down.
Those are like the guy, like the douchebags who call comic books graphic novels all the time.
Oh.
From now on, so many people object to calling our television show a TV show. From now on, you're not watching a TV show. You're watching like a masterpiece
photoplay.
theater.
Yeah.
Photoplay.
A visual drama.
Visit drama, that's a good one.
Yeah. I couldn't tell you why they were trying to do this or whose idea it was, but they were trying to change the name.
Well, it sounds like what Josh just said. Sounds like a kind of pretentious, I mean, I don't want to say pretentious like, oh my gosh, they're terrible people, but just like sort of an inflated idea of what they were making.
Perhaps, maybe
so many
also
people
that
have a problem with calling our comic books. Okay, well, I have a problem with calling trees. Why don't we call them, woodwork masterpieces extraordinaire? It's a tree.
God, cigarettes.
Also, we had some pretty good stuff in the Spider's Web this month. I did have a few letters written down here that I wanted to bring up. There is a letter in the Spider's Web from L.L. Simpson suggesting that Peter date Jean Grey, Marvel Girl of the X-Men. He thinks that this would give both Betty Brant and Liz Allen, and also the X-Men, something new to worry about.
Oh, could you
Like
imagine
Betty needs
Betty's
to be more to
reaction
worry
to that?
Betty needs more stuff to worry about, yeah.
Her head
No,
would explode.
The letter writer speculated that Mary Jane was Jean Grey. At least that's what I got from the letter. Like it's like ooh, maybe when he meets Mary Jane, it'll turn out to be Jean Grey. Like what? How does that even make sense?
I know, like Mary Jean Grey Watson person. I don't know.
I mean, he got the redhead right though.
Then it also says that it'll be a change from the Human Torch, which is Spider-Man's regular guest star, which I guess agrees with Josh's point that the Human Torch had become sort of a supporting character up through issue 21. And she was writing from Tyler, Texas, which is just an hour from me.
I'm sorry, L.L. Simpson. Why not have Peter consent to the date? When the girl arrives, it's Jean Grey, who's visiting her aunt. Doesn't even make sense.
I don't know if this was the case by issue 28, but I had heard that somewhere I read that Stan actually admitted that some of these early issues that he made some of these letters up.
Really?
What?
Yeah.
No.
I don't know if that's common knowledge. I don't know how true that is, but I had read
It
somewhere
is
that
now.
the early issues, he had kind of just made some of the letters up.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And
Now
it's
I'm gonna
not
be
like
thinking about that.
it's not like I'm giving something away that I shouldn't. I've actually read this in publications. So, but I don't
Now I'm
know
gonna
how
be thinking
true it
about
is. I
every
can't.
single letter I bring to this podcast now. I'm gonna be wondering if it's the
Yeah.
fabric of Stan Lee's imagination.
Well,
Oh my
it's
god,
funny
the
because
one that said he should date a happening hip girl, and then a few years later Mary Jane pops up. The
Right.
ones
well,
that would foreshadow stuff.
some of the early letters, if you read them, they just sound like the things that Stan would write, where they have a lot of the alliterations and everything in it. So who knows?
I just
Peter
figured it
Parker,
was,
Peanut Pepper stuff.
Stan's, like, the fans were just emulating and, sort of playing into the whole let's be Marvel fans gig. I don't know. That's just why I
I don't
always
know.
thought that.
I imagine that they probably, at this point, in Marvel's history, they were probably getting a lot of letters anyway. So,
Yeah,
I mean, maybe it was only for like the first for 6 issues.
I agree. Probably it's really the early ones, and probably not at this point.
Because Stan's writing a million books. I doubt that he has time to write like a lot of letters at this point.
Well,
And
although maybe-
I'm sure at most it might have been just a few here and there, if that's really true. I have no way of, finding out.
I wonder if he made up Ronald Miller's letter, because Ronald Miller wants to know what detergent brand Peter uses for his costume.
Who cares about? Why would somebody?
I don't know, but if you read some of the early letters, they just sound like they're just written a little too clever to come from a kid.
Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. There is a letter from Edward Brumby. He says, "Dear Stan and Steve, you once said, 'Since when do we have competitors?' I'll tell you, ever since you were on the stands. I think your so-called superheroes are terrible. In fact, they're all copies, except Spider-Man. Don't think that I have just read 1 or 2 of your comics. I've read over 50 of them. I get them so I can read your letters pages. They're the only good thing I read in your comics." And then just, yeah. And of course, Stan replies, "We don't care if you like them. Just buy them."
Awesome. That's an awesome answer either way.
Well, it's honest.
Yeah, right. Wayne Damon asks that they stop adding characters to Spider-Man's world. He feels that 24 villains and 5 co-stars is too much.
Wait till he meets the people who are going to be in ESU. We get a whopping 3 first appearances in issue 31.
Yeah, a whole new cast of characters coming up. Bill and Steve, and I never know how to pronounce this name. It's either Keeper or Kuiper, or it's Kuiper. I think it's Kuiper. They want to know how Mysterio was able to stay in the chair when his room was completely upside down, and I had asked about this in the episode. And Stan thinks that he might have had little hidden clamps holding him up.
Sure.
So there's your explanation from the source.
Okay.
Josh says in his "Oh my God, make it stop" voice.
That's just my thing now. Whenever they give an explanation sometimes if I can't take, I just say okay.
Yeah, like in the Avengers issue. Yeah.
And last letter I want to bring out is that Bob Manley wants to see Spider-Man at the wedding of Sue and Reed. He got his wish granted. We'll be talking about that next episode.
The very back, one of the last pages, is an ad for Record Riot. Do you guys have that?
Let's see.
I do not.
Record Riot, 60 smash songs for $2.98.
Yes. Okay, I recognize all these songs from the 60s, but Josh, what the heck is number 9? We Love You, Beatles?
Number 9.
We
Number
love
9.
you, Beatles. Oh yes, we do. We love it. It was one of those Beatles celebration songs that
Little fan club kind of things?
I don't want to say fan club, but there was groups that would basically put out songs about how awesome the Beatles were just so Beatles fans would buy it. It would be the equivalent of if there was a new singer out today and they did a song I love Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus. Okay. That was actually the theme song for my Beatles podcast for a little while. I actually had We Love You Beatles for a few months.
So I'm going to show my age. I'm going to show my age here, and this is that song is probably the equivalent of back in the early 80s, that song Pac-Man Fever. Yeah,
kind of. I mean, okay. Yeah.
Thank you for saying something. I was worried that after I said that, there would be complete, utter silence. Little crickets, tumbleweeds.
I was afraid I wouldn't know it. Like, I was like, where's he going with this? And like when he said number 9, I was like, well, there's that White Album song, but that was years later. You know that number 9.
Well, it completely didn't just went over my head that it was number 9. So, but oddly enough, it was. I just had to know that. I had no idea what that was, and I thought you would.
Because he is the Beatle expert.
Mm-hmm.
And the Monkees, apparently.
Well, they were the same group, right? Just like...
Yeah.
Shut up.
So we do have an ad here, besides the We Love You Beatles record, for more triumphs for Marvel. Fantastic Four number 42. To save you, why must I kill you?
Oh, the irony.
It brings the Frightful Four back to the continued story that they started by stealing the FF's powers in the first place. Only now Ben Grimm has been hypnotized into helping them, and he and Reed have a big old smackdown in the course of the issue.
Okay.
Also, Daredevil number 9 has Matt visiting a European eye doctor at Karen's behest to see if his blindness can be cured, but turns out that the doctor has been captured by a bad guy in a castle, because everyone lives in castles in Europe, and Matt gets captured too. And of course, wackiness ensues.
I remember that issue.
Yeah, it was a good one. Karen had been pressing...
I believe I have that issue, actually.
Karen had been pressing Matt for a while to get his eyes checked, and Matt was worried that if he got his eyes fixed, that it would take away his powers, and he finally gave in because he loved Karen and wanted to get laid.
We're going to talk about like how Marvel girlfriends are like horrible people. Like Karen Page basically was forcing Matt to do a medical procedure against his will. And oh yeah, she sold his secret identity to the Kingpin so she can be a junkie.
Yes. Sergeant Fury 21 has the Howlers invading Hitler's turf to free a hostage. That's the name of the story, and that's the point of the story. And I know that Gerard said we shouldn't diss on Sergeant Fury, but every time I look at these covers and read the blurbs in the Marvel checklist, I'm just like, wow, really?
What if Stan Lee had directed Inglourious Bastards?
I bet it would be filled with irony.
Wait a second. In order
I
to
must kill Hitler, yet he is my brother.
Are you saying that Hitler wants to fight against all the people who aren't like Aryan race and tall and blonde-haired and blue-eyed? But Hitler's not tall and blonde-haired and blue-eyed. Irony!
But yeah, Stan Lee would have put irony everywhere.
And we have another page that says another annual masterpiece in the fabulous Marvel style. We are creeping into annual season, and we have Journey into Mystery Annual number 1, introducing Hercules to the polytheistic pantheon of Marveldom. And of course,
Gladiator, Hercules.
This means that he and Thor have to fight. So,
well, of course. What else does it mean?
Of course. And since we're entering annual season again, we'll be bringing you the second Spider-Man annual next episode.
After these messages, we'll be right back. We love you, Beatles. Oh, yes, we do. We love you, Beatles. And we'll be true. When you're not near to us, we're blue. Oh, Beatles, we love you. Yeah, 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 yeah. We love you,
Now you've squashed my favorite Beatles.
So, before we go on to the next Spidey book, it might, or might not, be worth mentioning that the Marvel Tales Annual number 2 came out on July 3rd this year. It would go on to be a Spidey reprint book, of course, but this particular issue had no Spider-Man in it. It had a bunch of other origin stories like the X-Men and some others, but no Spider-Man. It does include Hulk number 3 with the Ringmaster that we talked about a few episodes back, Strange Tales 115, The Origin of Doctor Strange, Avengers number 1, and Amazing Adult Fantasy number 8 of all things. So that's Marvel Tales Annual number 2. Just a few days later, on July 8th, 1965, Amazing Spider-Man 29 was released, with an October cover date. And our special guest for this episode is going to tell us all about it. Take it away, Eddie!
We have Amazing Spider-Man issue number 29, and on the cover, we have a great shot, another great cover, like 28, great shot of Spidey and the Scorpion, half in and half out of water. And whatever you do, wherever you go, never step on a scorpion. And, oh my goodness, what a blurb on the inside on the splash page. On the surface, this may seem to be a superhero action thriller, but if you probe down deep, if you analyze each subtle nuance, if you dissect each philosophical phrase, if you study each non-existentialistic panel, you'll discover that it actually is a superhero action thriller. Wah, wah.
I saw what they tricked me.
Yes, and of course, when Academy Award time rolls around, leave us not forget writing and editing by Stan Lee, plotting and drawing by Steve Ditko, lettering and bordering by Sam Rosen, again, full name's SAM.
Wait.
And
do you have lettering and bordering?
Yes, it says lettering and bordering by. You don't have that?
No.
What
Oh, really? What are you looking at?
I'm looking at a scan of the original issue. Supposedly, it says lettering and loafing by Sam Rosen.
You know what? We are going to stifle the controversy right here because I am opening up the original issue. Oh, look. You know what? And from what I have, it is completely different. Wow.
What were you reading off of the first time?
I was reading off from a digital copy that I had that I just printed out.
Okay.
And the two splash pages, yeah, they're different. Yeah, you know what? I think it is because in the version I printed out, it said lettering and bordering by Sam Rosen and then coloring and clowning by Andy Yankus, a name I've never heard.
No.
And
we never get coloring credits for these old issues.
Right. Well, it's in here, but in the original issue, it's not. You're right. Lettering and loafing by Sam Rosen.
Wow.
We need to,
interesting.
Hire Matt Gargan to do an investigative report on why loafing was changed to bordering.
I've heard Matt Gargan's kind of out of the business lately, though. Something happened to him, some medical problem.
All right, so I'm going to continue on with what I have printed out, but if we see any discrepancies, I'm going to go back to that original issue.
Betty Brant's changed it to Liz Allen.
I'm just going to derail this whole conversation for a minute. Do you have any memory stories of how you came into possession of these two particular issues?
Are you, of 28 and 29, you mean?
Yeah.
Yes, they were both bought on eBay years ago.
Okay, just randomly bought on eBay, not that you wandered into a comic book store
and
saw the girl in a red dress and she pointed to the blue rose and you saw that there were, okay. None of that stuff?
No, sorry, no. Nope. Okay. No, just good old eBay.
All right.
So our story starts with Peter trying on some clothes and finding out that they're suddenly getting too tight for him. So he goes to the bank to get out what seems to be the last of his money and deciding not to spend it too fast, goes wandering off to do some clothes shopping. But yet decides maybe I'll go shopping later and stop in to see Betty.
That's a mistake.
But meanwhile, we see some bars being ripped off a prison cell and the Scorpion making his escape and basically exclaiming that he outsmarted the police by pretending to crack up so they'd give him his costume back, which I cannot imagine anyone being so stupid.
Okay.
And I think it's actually really funny because doesn't he actually go crazy later thinking that he can't take his costume off?
Yes, in early Spectacular Spider-Man issue, yeah. So
it's some awesome, and it's not really foreshadowing because it's not the same writer, but That's
But
pretty
in
funny.
that issue, Spidey does just walk up and say, "I don't know what you're talking about," and rips off his mask.
No, it's my
That's also
face.
the PlayStation game. He's like, I can't take my costume off.
So he explains here that he pretended to go crazy to get his costume back, which I would think that if the guy's going crazy, why would you give him his costume back? Secondly, he had plenty of time to repair the tail that was ripped off in issue 20. So he's got his costume, he's repairing it, and no one seems to think anything of it.
When the Unabomber was put in jail, he acted a little crazy. They're like, we better give him his bombs back.
Exactly. Yeah. We want him nice and calm. Okay. Cut to the Daily Bugle where JJJ is talking to...
Frederick
help
Foswell.
me out here. Thank you. Foswell. The name completely slipped my head.
Big man.
Where set up...
Well, hold on. It's... I'm looking at the Masterwork copy, and it says publisher of the famous New York Bugle.
It does say New York Bugle.
Yes, you're
Yeah,
right.
NY Bugle.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
The sleeping pills are kicking in, Josh.
I guess, it is the New York Daily Bugle, but we never heard it referred to as just the New York Bugle before.
Yeah, well, could it possibly be Stan didn't have enough room there in the caption and just...
Oh, look, it's
made
star
something
photographer Peter Palmer.
Well,
It's
in a
Lucky
bit of
Gal
foreshadowing-
Friday, Flo Steinberg.
Well, Sam is spending so much time writing out his entire name now that he takes shortcuts later.
So in this panel, there's a bit of a setup here where Jameson is talking to Foswell about the reports of the cat burglar that comes up later. Not in this issue, but obviously later on. Okay, but off to the good stuff here.
Also, robberies of scientific equipment. That comes up later on, too.
Yes.
Not the science.
Well, Peter goes to find Betty Brant, where she finds him talking to newly returned from Europe, Ned Leeds.
You can hear the music, this scene scored in the background. He's looking at Betty. He's like, she's in such a good mood, and then he's walking up to her to love music, and then I wonder who she's. Hello there, Parker. Long time no see. And then the record's screeching to a halt.
Yeah. Because Betty, who would freak out anytime she would see a random woman walking anywhere close to Peter, is suddenly, oh, isn't it wonderful? Look, Ned is back.
Preach it. Preach
Yeah.
it.
She actually even gets jealous whenever Aunt May is around Peter, but she has to stifle that one because she knows that's just too crazy.
Yeah, that's taking it a little too far.
This
but
is the woman who joined a cult and told people to open up the coffin of her dead husband to check if he was breathing. So there is no crazy turning point for
There is no boundary for Betty Brant, and she wonders why nobody came to her birthday last year.
Yeah. So
it's actually canon. Betty has no friends.
As she deserves.
That's the quote.
It's canon. It's in the issue. Betty has no friends.
On my Facebook right now.
No, I'm doing it. It's mine. It's mine. I tell you.
Take it.
now the panel that makes me laugh is the last one on this page, where the police officer runs in looking for J. Jonah Jameson, and Jameson's first reaction is, hey, I put a dime in the parking meter. I can prove it. First of all, how do you prove you put a dime in the parking meter? How do you prove that? Well, you take a picture of yourself dropping the dime in, holding the newspaper next to you, to show the date and time and all that? Like Lee Harvey Oswald with the rifle? What is? I don't get that. But even to top
the amount of
that,
money that you would use to prove something like that.
Yeah, but to top that, the police officer says, "Oh, it's nothing to do with parking this time." So obviously, the same guy has been coming up there bugging him about the meter for who knows how many times.
So Jameson actually carries a Polaroid camera with him now. He takes a picture of himself inserting money.
Exactly.
Doesn't he own the building?
Shouldn't he get parking compensation or something?
That's a park in other people's spaces because that's how he rolls.
I mean, I know Jonah's supposed to be a miser and everything, but a dime, really, is he Scrooge McDuck now?
Apparently. So this police officer notifies Jameson that the Scorpion has escaped, and basically that he's threatening Jonah's life. So Jonah throws it off, saying, well, why would he be threatening me? Bashaw. But obviously turning away, sweating, scared. So from there, we have the good part where Peter Parker is asking Betty Brant out. And, oh, no, Peter, Ned is taking me to see Golden Boy tomorrow night. So Betty, who cannot even stand to see Liz anywhere near Peter, is suddenly announcing that, oh no, I have another date. I can't go out with you.
Testify.
Huh?
No, this
Yeah.
is not even as bad as the Scorpion's first appearance in issue 20. Or no, I'm sorry. Was it issue? No, issue 19.
20.
Yeah.
No, it's 20.
20 was, but I was confusing that scene with the scene in issue 19 where like Betty like takes out her calendar and she's like, "You can date me this night, and Ned can date me this night," and then like Ned comes and Peter's like, "You two have a good time on your date tonight, Betty. I'll see you tomorrow," and she's like, "Okay, bye." Like this weird arrangement that they effing have.
Yes. But don't you dare look at another woman, Peter.
Don't you dare. Like
I have a question.
as they say in the next issue with the Scorpion, where he's like, "I know I don't have the right to make you tell you not to date other men." She's like, "I don't want to talk about that right now." But she wanted to talk next issue when Dory Evans was there.
So
Jonah...
The drama's fun here, but I do actually have a cultural note, because I didn't know what Golden Boy was.
Oh, yes, I looked it up too. Yeah.
It's a 1937 Broadway play that they adapted to a musical and released on Broadway in 1964.
It's Sammy Davis Jr.
Yeah.
Yes.
568 performances is how long it ran, so it was definitely still playing around this time.
They're actually seen a docu-film about the events of last issue.
What?
Molten Man. Molten Man, Golden Boy,
Golden
really?
Boy.
Golden Boy is a docu-film about the events of last issue. I'm there with you now, sir.
What color are Peter's clothes? Because to me, they look like the same clothes that he was wearing in the Kurt Busiek, Alex Ross miniseries Marvels, where he showed a picture of Jameson about the looters. Says, "Oh, these pictures make Spider-Man look terrible," and Phil Sheldon gives him the stare of death. So is he wearing like a dark black and lavender, or no, not lavender, dark black and brown vest kind of thing?
It's a yellow vest.
Yeah, it's a yellow vest with a dark brown shirt, but yet if you look in the original issue, it's a yellow vest with a white shirt.
Weird.
So go figure.
Well, it's so heavily inked. How can it be white? It's weird.
Well, it's not colored where it's not inked, so I guess I don't know why it's inked so heavily. That's kind of strange that it is, actually.
I don't know, unless it's supposed to be black and the white is supposed to be the highlights.
Highlighted.
That'd be weird.
Yeah, would be.
Ditko!
So Ned leads on the scene that you're mentioning when Peter's leaving. He's like, "Leaving so soon, Parker? Don't tell me you're scared of the Scorpion." And then Peter punches Ned Leeds in the face and throws him out the window and
throws him into the sun.
Yeah, what a jerk!
Parker away.
At least in issues 18 and 19 and 20, Ned was kind of a nice guy.
Well, I guess it all depends on how you read it, because it could be like, "Oh, don't tell me you're afraid of the Scorpion," like ha ha ha, joking around.
He does have a smile on his face, and the page before he had said you have a good sense of humor. I think he's honestly trying to be friendly, like, I've been friends with you for at least a week so I can kid you around now, instead of I'm trying to steal your girlfriend away and I just came back from Europe so I can, tease you. I don't think
he's trying to emasculate. He's trying to emasculate Peter in front of Betty. That's what he's trying to do.
Well, it's like saying, don't tell me you're afraid of a big bad costume superpowered serial killer, Parker. Why would you be afraid of that?
Did you ever see Cheers? They had a running subplot with Woody and his girlfriend Kelly and this guy from Europe who was always trying to steal Woody's girlfriend Kelly from him, and he was so overt about it, but he'd pass it off as a joke. And he's like, "Hey Woody, did I mention I'm gonna steal your girlfriend? Ha ha ha." And then Kelly'd be like, "Oh, he's such a kidder." And he's like, "That's what she told me in the shower this morning."
Wow.
It was like a running plot line for half a season, and he's like, "Oh no, I lost my green card. I guess we're gonna have to get married."
So now we have Jonah suddenly worried and scared that, oh my God, the enemy that I created is coming after me. Ooh, irony.
Yeah.
So basically, Peter heads out as Spider-Man with the bright idea of, gee, if I make myself be seen so readily, maybe the Scorpion will come after me. But little does he know that the Scorpion decides, whoa, well, goodness, well, he's creating a diversion, so I'm going to go straight to the Daily Bugle without anyone seeing me.
With his magical springtail powers.
Yes.
Which is awesome.
And
it's a backwards boner.
Now,
going back, okay. His suit. They gave it to him in the stupid prison.
Yeah.
It was in shambles because, I mean, we remember last time Spidey ripped the whole tail right off his back.
Exactly.
So not only did they give him his suit, but also the means with which to repair it.
No one even bothers to think anything of it.
Here is a dismantled gun and a screwdriver. Please
Have
put
fun.
it back to... It's just like, why? And he added magical spring powers.
So we see on the top of page 7, Jonah's big plan of getting Spider-Man to come after the Scorpion is basically making up news that they are partners. And once again, I do not understand how Jonah can get away with making up news all the time and no one even says a thing.
It's the 60s.
But it's an ongoing thing of, I own a paper, I'm going to say whatever I want, I don't care if it's true. So basically, Peter, Spider-Man, gets the wise idea of, oh, wait a minute, I played right into Scorpy's hands, and he's probably gone straight to the Daily Bugle, which, of course, he has. And he busts right into... Now, here's a funny thing that Josh brought up earlier. He busts right into the J. Jonah's office, and Jonah feels a breeze behind him when the Scorpion walks in, and rather than turn around to see what it is, he just keeps looking straight ahead in the opposite direction, saying, that's funny, I thought I felt a draft behind me.
Which is what I always say whenever I feel a draft.
Sure. No, most people, correct me if I'm wrong, wouldn't you just turn around and look before you even say anything? But no, okay. So, basically the Scorpion starts to destroy Jonah's office, trying to catch him, chasing him around. Now, I have a question here. How old at this point in the series would you say Jonah is?
51.
I would say he's about maybe
50s, 60s.
Oh, what you mean currently in modern times?
Well, in this issue.
In this issue, I think he's like about maybe 43, 45.
Really? That's it? I would think he's older than that because I'm 42, and I mean he's older. You can obviously see the lines on his face, the gray hair on the side of his head.
Different time, like all that smoking anything. I don't know.
I mean, I would think he's probably late 50s, somewhere around there. Well, the reason I bring that up is for an older guy, he sure can move. I mean, he's avoiding it pretty nimbly. I mean, he's really moving.
Look at those legs. He's got some agility going on there.
Well, that costume might be a little bulky, I mean, Gargan...
The Jonah Jameson costume?
No, yeah, the Jonah Jameson costume for the Jonah robot. No, the Scorpion's costume. Maybe that tail moves, slow. I mean, maybe when Gargan tries to run, the costume, slows him down.
It's like the stupid Avatar Last Airbender movie, where to make the waterbending happen, they have to do, 16 karate moves to make, 5 drops of water float in the air.
Tai Chi, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe they're running and it looks really dramatic, but Jonah's going 2 miles per hour and Gargan's going 2 miles per hour. He's like, get back here.
I guarantee that's what it's like in the 67 cartoon where he's the animation model's like running as fast as he can, but he's actually moving very slowly out of the door.
All right, so basically then at this point we see Jonah cornered by the Scorpion, and luckily just in the nick of time here comes Spider-Man right through the window to help save him. Oh, Spider-Man!
Oh, goodness.
This is the last time we see Betty. Oh, no, this is the last time we see Betty.
Yes, there's some good Betty stuff coming up here. Spider-Man goes straight to Scorpion, hitting and swatting to try to save Jonah. And I got to say that the fight that goes on at this point from now to almost the end of the issue has got to be a really, really good fight as far as Ditko Lee run goes.
Oh, yeah. And both the choreography of the fight and the scripting. I mean, on page 10, the 2 Ned Leeds panels, that's brilliant.
Oh, I'm getting to that too. Yeah, first of all, we have Ned doing the complete total C-block move of, I'll save Betty, you go after the big, horrible, scary monster, powerful guy. Basically telling Spider-Man what to do. Oh, go get the Scorpion, I'll take care of Betty.
He was like, why I oughta?
They're teaming up, it's
the Ned Leeds team up.
Yeah.
Whole team, Ned Leeds and the
Spider-Man.
As Betty cowers, catatonic, unable to say anything,
You don't see her face for the entire issue.
Goodness, I mean, I've hung out with loan sharks and I saw my brother get shot for me, and Dr. Octopus kidnaps me and possibly sexually assaults me every other week, but this is just too much. You know, I mean, she was pretty okay when the Scorpion showed up in issue 20, but like here it's like, oh my God, she just wants attention from Ned Leeds, you know, God.
Seriously, dude. Like, there's no reason for this.
She's probably
No,
like
none at
fully
all.
aware of everything that's going on. She's like, oh, maybe, you know, maybe this will get Ned to pay attention to me. Oh, Ned, the Scorpion. Oh. It's okay, Betty. Just, you know, cry inside of my jacket.
So Ned gives Spider-Man the wonderful insight of, oh, watch out for his tail, and then we see the last panel where Spider-Man comes flying upside down into the wall, and Ned telling him, "I told you to watch out for his tail," and a nice little touch of Spider-Man saying, "Ah, shut up," and since obviously he is upside down, so is his balloon, his speech balloon.
Shut up!
So the fight ensues continuously in Jonah's office, and eventually, I remember. This is one of the notes I have here.
I like to imagine this fight like sped up with the Benny Hill music.
On page 11, basically when Spider-Man is coming in to save Jonah, he's like cowering, going, "Oh my, Spidey, hit him again, hit him harder. Oh, you know, oh, save me." But then, first panel on page 12, it's like, "Hey, you incompetent bum!" You know, he's making you look like a bum here. So, you know, at one minute it's like, "Oh, save me." The next minute it's, "Hey, doofus, what are you doing on the ground?" So, the fight eventually, when the police arrive, the fight starts to go outside when the Scorpion escapes and Spidey chases him. And suddenly we have at this point Jonah turning into a big tough guy of, "Oh yeah, come
awesome.
back here, you cowards. Oh, look at you, yellow. Both of you taking off."
And of course, he misspells riddance.
When the police, you know, the same police who probably gave the Scorpion his costume back. "No, hold your fire. Jonah's in no immediate danger."
Oh, God, yeah.
The Scorpion's trying to kill him. And
Yeah.
Spider-Man obviously is not like close to stopping him. And hey, Spider-Man, you know we as the reader know he's the hero, but the police, you know, they're not so sure. So these two maniacs, you know, one who's tried to murder Jonah on multiple occasions, are like 5 feet away from him. "Nope, hold your fire." Everything seems to be in order here.
Yeah.
Okay, people, move along. There's nothing to see here.
Of course, if they ever did a what if about like what if, you know, the cops hadn't held their fire, like Ned Leeds probably would have been shot, and then we would have gotten a retread of issue like 11 with Betty hitting Spider-Man. "It's all your fault, I say, your fault. I hate you, Spider-Man, till the day you die."
That'll be two lovers that have died in a fight with Spider-Man.
And then Spider-Man thinking, "I don't care as long as Ned Leeds is dead." And then Spider-Man would have been like, "Hey, Leeds," like kicking his dead body. "I told you to watch out for the bullets, huh?"
with the Ditko like Peter Parker evil face.
"Told you to watch out for the bullets, Leeds. Why didn't you listen?"
Yeah. Wah, wah. So we have Jonah standing in his newly destroyed office, suddenly wondering, "Oh my God, look at everything's destroyed," but yet thinking, "Ha ha, little do they know, I've been wanting to get rid of this junk for years, and the insurance isn't going to pay for it all. Nyuk, nyuk." And then
it looks like he's pulling a Sergeant Fury stance there in front of the cameras.
I don't like to
say. Oh yeah. But before that, of course, we have Ned suddenly, you know, taking care of Betty, saying, "Oh, I must take her home. You know, I have to see her home. Of course. Just I'll take it out of her pay. No worry, because he's all heart." Yeah, and then of course, in front of the cameras, trying to look all tough and you know, big and tough. "Look at me, I'm a hero. You know, I took on the Scorpion and Spider-Man in my own office."
Make sure these pictures do me justice. Get my courageous expression, my determined
fearless, my clenched fists, my determination, my fighting stance,
my Popeye forearms.
And then the last panel, you know, like he looks like he's a baby sucking on a lollipop.
Okay, you know what? I think Steve Ditko like discovered this expression because he uses it a lot whenever Jameson gets worried over the next couple of issues, and I think it's genius. I mean, he's just like my worried sucking on my cigar expression. I think it's really funny.
I'll make sure to look out for it.
You do have to say that Steve Ditko did have a talent for oddball faces that tell a lot. Yeah. So here he is worried again that the Scorpion's going to come back for him. But we have cut two. The fight takes place once again outside, out in the open, among the rooftops and the water towers. And this page especially, 14, I think is just pretty amazing as far as Ditko work goes. And Spider-Man fashions himself some web bolas to ensnare and entangle a Scorpion. And off the rooftop they go.
I have to say, though, I know that this is not the first time he's used web bolas, but I was thinking about it while I was reading this issue, and I just don't buy it.
Oh, come on.
The thing with bolas is that, like, the balls on the ends of the strings, they're solid metal. They have some mass to them. That's how they function, and I just don't think this webbing has the density to make an effective bola. I don't buy it.
Not at all. Obviously,
yeah. This is what we're not going to buy.
I call bull stuff.
Yeah. This is what we're going to call bull stuff on, not everything else.
Not the vest, not the paddles, not the skis, not the parachute.
I already said magic springtail earlier, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Exactly.
I love the tail. It's missing a sound effect. Yeah.
So off the rooftops and eventually into the water goes the fight, which we have on page 17, the third panel, which mimics the cover, which is kind of a nice touch, I think.
I like it when they do that, really do.
Yeah, and he does manage to web up the scorpion underwater, which I really would like to know how that happens.
In the 90s cartoon, he can't do that.
Does he?
And he tries that in the Hydro Man episode. Like, he's underwater and like electric eels are going after him. And he tries to web them underwater, but it doesn't. It like immediately dissipates.
Yeah, I'll buy that they function underwater. I won't buy that the web fluid works underwater. That it sprays out like a net like that.
Reed Richards probably gave him like an unstable molecules thing.
Reed Richards and Doctor Strange and Tony Stark teamed up to create this, psychic web shooter block.
But Tony would only do it if they told him that STDs were involved. I wish I could say that was like pulled out of left field, but it wasn't. That's how they do it in the issue. It's like, come on, Tony. It's just like giving STDs to the world. Ooh, well, now that you say that.
Why didn't you say so?
So, well, you got to think, though. If they're shooting out with a particular velocity, of any, of a decent amount, yeah, I would imagine them working underwater. But if you're at the mercy of the water's current, I can't see how he could have any control over them.
No, we're
glad we're in agreement
with that. That and the web bolas.
And right.
No. The web bolas make perfect sense.
And Liz Hilton.
Of course.
Anna Watson's daughter, Mary Jane.
Right.
Baltimore.
And Jonah flirting with his future stepmother.
So Spider-Man uses the logic that basically that he can keep the scorpion underwater and tire him out because he can't hold his breath as long as I can. Which I say, how does he know that?
So that means his logic is, I'm going to fight the scorpion underwater long enough so that he'll drown.
Pretty much.
My little witnesses are wasted on you right now. Yeah.
This is not just to overcome him in a fight technique here. This is a let's fight until he dies tactic.
Yeah. And the fact that he pulls him out of the water unconscious but still alive was a complete accident.
Right.
So he leaves him webbed up for the police.
He uses the tail to like pump out the water out of his lungs.
That's funny.
I could see Stan like making up scientific facts like everyone knows that spiders can hold their breath underwater longer than scorpions.
I just see the Saturday morning cartoon where he's like doing a ring on the tail and the water comes out.
So he leaves him webbed up for the police, and once again I have to bring up the issue of then what? What do the police do with him? The webbing is going to dissolve. The scorpion is obviously much stronger than the police. How do they get him into a cell?
We better leave him his costume, because he might get upset.
Right.
Yeah, because that's one thing about the scorpion is that, sure, the costume gives him his tail, but other than that, he retains all of his other powers. Limited as though they may be. Super strength and pincher fingers.
Open fire on his legs and, just drag him in there.
His mummy rocket boots. Sorry, that's a Superman reference.
So at this point, the fight being over, Peter manages to wring out his costume and head back to the Daily Bugle, where he...
Jonah says, no, Ned Leeds took your girlfriend home.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Here's my note.
Yeah.
Oh, did you see Betty? Oh, no, Ned took her. Yeah, Ned stole her away from you. Right.
Yeah, they're probably having sex right now.
He is an Olympic medal winning sex artist,
And I'm actually I'm actually checking the original issue because in the copy that I have printed out here, Peter's clothes have changed color yet again.
No, in the issue, it's the same.
Okay, because now he's wearing a gray shirt as opposed to a brown one earlier.
Maybe it was supposed to be gray the whole time, but in the issue, it's still the white, the heavily inked white.
Yeah,
Unstable
okay, so
molecules.
Who was the colorist on this again? Because he's having trouble apparently with browns and grays.
yeah, well, I have it here, remember? And it's not in the original issue. Andy
Clothes and
Yankus, whoever that is, never heard of him until just now.
And this was the Marvel Tales edition that you're reading?
I am reading a printout from a digital copy I have that looks like it's from a Masterworks by the coloring.
Masterworks,
So-
gotcha.
Yeah, so it could be a later coloring, recoloring. So Peter tries to call Betty, but no answer, and then goes home. And this gets me. And this always cracks me up and always ticks me off. Aunt May asks him, did you go for a walk? Why, yes, I did. Oh, well, be sure you don't overdo it. You must be sure to take a little rest every few blocks. I don't get why she thinks Peter is such a weakling that he cannot even walk more than a block without collapsing.
Even Peter's like, Jesus Christ, stop
Yeah,
it.
it's like, enough already, lady. Like in her mind, apparently he walks like a block and a half and suddenly just collapses on the ground unconscious.
Pizza collapsed on the street. Actual dialogue that someone said to Aunt May in the '90s animated series, like Josh
really?
puts, like he's like Peter collapsed on the street. Take me to him. Oh goodness.
Maybe Peter had asthma before he got spider powers.
I'm trying to think if there's any like ridiculous retcon where he because I know he got injured sometimes when he was a kid, but I mean he wasn't a sickly kid when he got bitten. I mean he's just a nerd. I mean,
He still like washes Peter's hair and stuff every night.
It's been partially explained that she's overprotective because she lost a child before having Peter, but it doesn't really fully explain just how psychotic she is about it.
No, not at all. Apparently,
her
the child she lost walked a block and a half and collapsed somewhere, apparently.
Oh goodness, like
That's how she lost him. Hello.
her brother and sister-in-law were like died in a plane crash. Her husband got shot. Some relative of hers got euthanized, according to a Paul Jenkins story. I mean, this woman has like the touch of death, so she probably believes everything that she sees on like Dateline or 2020. Like, teenagers are collapsing in the street at a record rate. Oh goodness! Be sure to tell your teenager they'll only walk a block.
And rest.
Wow.
Yes. So Peter calls Betty again and finally gets someone on the other line. And what? Huh? Who? It's Ned Leeds. Who tells Peter that the doctor came and Betty is so distraught and so horrible that she must rest. Oh, so when Betty asks, oh, who is it? Who is it? Who's calling for me? Oh, don't worry, Betty. It can't be anything important. Don't disturb yourself.
And it's this woman, like, she appears in this panel and one panel next issue and then never again.
Yeah,
because Betty has no friends. Betty probably alienated her too. Because when Betty gets married in issue 156, she only has one bridesmaid, and it's Mary Jane. Like she can't even get her own friend. She's got to get like the current girlfriend of her ex-boyfriend.
Her ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend.
Like she can only get one bridesmaid.
Well, when you're crazy like that, you just push everybody away at some point. No one wants to be around you.
She probably woke up and was like, my friend and Ned Leeds are talking together. Oh, you blonde boys, get out of my apartment. It's like, Ned, you obviously don't know how things work, so let me sit down and explain it to you. I thought that you were hilarious from this attack from the Scorpion. Oh, that's right. Oh, goodness, Ned, hold me.
Okay, did you notice like what her last event to which she reacted was? Before she fainted or started, huddling in Ned's arms, is the giant tail coming after her. And she's like, there's no escaping his deadly tail. And I just think that fits right into her whole
tentacles from Dr.
Octopus fear. Like flashbacks popped into her mind and sent her all sorts of, dangerous places in her mind. And that's what caused her to pass out.
She's got a blanket over her and like a washcloth over her forehead, for crying out loud. She doesn't have the swine flu. She's all the energy that they're putting into taking care of this hypochondriac woman. Like Aunt May has actual heart attacks and like
right. Now, I'm
And
assuming at this
and
point,
she has to make her nephew breakfast the next day.
so I'm assuming at this point that both Ned and this friend don't realize how crazy Betty is, so they're just playing into her whole
So it's too late.
craziness. Yeah.
Ned find
She
out
needs
though.
a girlfriend to stay the night. She needs a blanket, and she needs like.
What issue is it, Josh? The issue that you told me about, that you sent me the panels from, where how much you value our marriage conversation between Ned and Betty. What issue is that?
It's issue 280.
Of Amazing Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Okay. So we have 250 issues before Ned realizes just how crazy Betty is.
Ay.
The issue
25
where
years.
Ned's leaving, and she's like, Ned, why are you leaving? And he's like, you're cheating on me with someone who's in jail, and you still can't make up your mind on who you love. Doesn't our marriage mean anything to you? To which, like, my God. Poor Ned. Like, if I was Ned, I would have just, like, done, like, a Glenn Quagmire-style speech for the next 20 minutes. This is the same woman that, like, when she went to marriage counseling, she had to quit her job for, like, a month, you know, because marriage counseling is that, like, trying of an experience.
Mhm.
This one,
By the way,
much-
her mother's a vegetable, practically, like, according to Untold Tales, you know, and this, she's like, you know, can't have people taking care of her mother, but, you know, when Betty sees someone, she needs 2 people at the apartment to take care of her, and her girlfriend's gonna stay the night, you know, because...
I just think that just regular life is just way too much for her at this point.
Well, yeah, when she was
Just life in
unplugging like
general.
an electrical socket in issue 25, she's like, "Oh, what a thrill! I'm like an adventure novelist." You know?
So Ned tells Peter that, okay, fine, I'll tell her you called. And he says, yeah, right, whatever. Tell her I called. Aunt May is in the kitchen thinking, Peter looks a little tired today. What that dear boy needs is a good tonic. This makes me laugh because, I mean, was this the 1800s tonic? I mean, did she pick it up from like the traveling medicine show that went by the house or something? Tonic.
To fix your what ails you, you know?
Exactly. Yeah.
But he can't drink it too fast, you know, because he's such a fragile boy. If he drinks it too fast, he'll probably choke.
Right.
You know, choking on the liquid, Peter might drown. I'm like,
Oh, sure. God forbid he's drinking while he walks a block and a half. He'll explode.
Don't drink a tonic and then go walking.
Oh no, of course not. So
the
in
second you hear the door slam, you hear, I knew it!
I knew it!
So
it's really Green Goblin attacking.
In the middle of this, suddenly Aunt May's collapse. Everything is spinning, and she's suddenly dizzy. But when Peter runs in, she plays it off as, "Oh, nothing, dear. I just dropped a glass." And he says, "Oh, are you sure that's all?" "Oh, sure, that's all. That's all. I mustn't worry him. It's probably nothing serious. I must not let him know that I'm feeling anything wrong." Or, "Dear God, woman, go to a hospital. You don't feel good. Tell your nephew. Let him take you to a hospital." But
but if
no.
he drives more than half a mile, you know.
So that's the thing is that, I mean, on the one hand, this is actually a pretty common mindset, at least in the family members that I've dealt with. You know, not worrying your children and everything about your health because you feel like you should be able to take care of yourself. That's a pretty common mindset. It's actually one of the few things that Aunt May has done in the entire 29 issues we've read that makes sense to me.
Okay, well, I just find it odd because I would think that for whatever, especially if this is the case where she, no matter what, must be around to take care of Peter because, he'll be all alone, the poor boy. He can't do anything. He can't even, figure out how to feed himself or bathe himself.
That was my other hand, is that, on the other hand, she's doing it because she's not worried about her, has now graduated from high school. And we've talked about,
He's been the sole provider for that household for the past 29 issues.
Who will take care of this lonely, lonely boy? Like, okay, he in the middle of the 60s, when you graduate high school, you will never see your parents again. Not literally, but you're supposed to move out. And,
you're a man.
Basically, make something of yourself. Hey, your aunt, nonetheless. He's like, who will take care of this lonely boy? It's like she really had it coming when Gwen Stacy yelled at her about that. Several hundred issues later. Like,
Agreed. That was like the first sensical thing I saw as far as how people treated Aunt May when Gwen let her have it.
Treated her with contempt.
Exactly.
Wait.
But
when does this happen?
Oh, this was much later. Can someone possibly bring it up? There was a point where
I can't place the numbers. It's around
one
the
of those
Conway run, I think.
Early hundreds. Oh, well, it was like the very end of the Stan Lee run, actually, because I think Stan wrote it, but then Conway continued the plot line because
right.
It was another Peter's missing thing, and Aunt May's like, "Oh, my darling Peter, where did he go?" And Gwen was already losing her mind at that point, so she's like, "He's not a boy, he's a man, and
what a man!
Doesn't need you to take care of him." And then Aunt May responds by running away from home like she's 12 years old. Like she leaves a note like, "You'll never see me again."
But that's a Conway run because she goes to the Dark Hawk, right?
Yeah, but it was like a Stan Lee plotline that bled into the Conway run.
Oh, a Stan Lee's second run.
The issue that Gwen yelled at him was a Stan Lee written issue.
Yeah, and so basically, Aunt May really is Betty Brant, just much older, in this sense. Like I must be the center of attention. If nobody's gonna play into my craziness, I'm just gonna take off and you'll never see me again.
Oh my God, because Betty does that all the time.
Yeah, she's Betty Brant, just much older.
No wonder, May hates Betty. They're like...
Yeah. Well, Peter has, in these issues, well, obviously before he graduated high school, he's got two women fighting over him, Liz and Betty. And at the same time, so much so that he's constantly turning down Aunt May's request to meet Mary Jane, but yet he's such a poor, lonely boy. So go figure.
I wish I was that lonely.
What does she think he's doing for the Daily Bugle? Taking pictures of pottery exhibits or something?
Probably.
If you walk more than a block, please take a rest. But, you go take those pictures of that awful Spider-Man and all those crazy villains.
And she reads the paper, right? Because, old people do. And
sure.
So she surely sees Peter's byline on the photographs in the paper.
Yeah. She just doesn't read the paper.
Maybe she thinks that's a different Peter Parker. Maybe it's Peter Palmer.
Yeah.
There's in the first issue of Untold Tales, there's a news report on TV, and Aunt May turns it off, and she's like, "You can't watch that. You'll get nightmares."
Wow.
Yeah, I have that.
It's like he's 5 years old, for crying out loud. Jeez.
I bet you she probably gave him babs until he was in high school.
My God, I wouldn't be surprised if she tries to breastfeed him, for crying out loud. The way she acts.
Peter's probably talking to the kids and yeah, last night when my Aunt May was giving me what? What do you mean? What, your parents don't give you babs anymore? What did they stop when you guys were 15? Like much earlier, Peter. What do you mean?
She breastfed me till I was 11.
Well, what do you mean? You don't get breastfed by your parents anymore? Well, everyone, check out Liz. She thinks that she's too good for her mother's breast milk. Ooh.
Can you imagine? Some awkward.
That's why Peter gets picked on
in high school.
The entire time, that entire run, Flash and everybody did this mouths agape, staring at him, what? Mouthing WTF.
Forrest behind him.
It's like, Peter, no, we've been bathing ourselves since elementary school.
And I have no memories of ever breastfeeding, and thank God I haven't.
So my point was, I don't think she is gentle and loving. I think she's rather manipulative and controlling of Peter.
She killed Uncle Ben because she thought that he wasn't a fit enough older guardian because he wasn't as mollycoddling as she was.
If he hadn't been shot, she would have driven him to the grave.
I think
no doubt.
It was probably he was probably trying to leave her, and she's like, "Liar, you were with that blonde, girl." Oh, you mean Mrs. Watson? We were just talking. She's our next door neighbor. You were taking out the trash with her, pulling a Betty and Liz out.
She touched your hair.
She ran her fingers through your hair.
Yeah, a leaf fell in my hair. She said, "Oh, you don't want to have that in there for when you go back to May." And then that's why Anna Watson's husband mysteriously disappeared. He was also shot by May.
Well, as amazing as this Aunt May tangent has been, any other specific notes that people have that didn't get covered along the way?
A couple pages after the last page there is an advertisement for the Mary Marvel bullpen page where you can order your own Spider-Man shirt and Marvel stationery.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to thank, and I say that sarcastically, I would like to thank Douglas Dartis of 1210 West Main, Ozark, Arkansas, for writing in my comic book. In the original issue, that coupon is filled out. But I at least, every time I see a kid write his name on like a cover of a comic book or somewhere inside, it always ticks me off that, hey, I got an issue that somebody wrote all over with, but at least this, I'm thankful that he put his full name and address so I can track him down and smack him in the head for writing in my comic book. The only thing that saves him is he did check mark that he wants a Spider-Man t-shirt. So there.
Well, he never actually sent off the order form, though.
No, he just left it in there. Thank you. Well, I guess it's better to have it filled out and left in than clipped out.
Right. That's pretty funny, though.
But yes, he did deface my original issue.
I thought you were going to tell a story about how you have this amazing Spider-Man t-shirt.
Oh, no. That would be nice.
I'm sure that by now, 40 years later, it's crap and falling apart, and, the cotton doesn't even hold together anymore. But it would be cool to see.
Probably. Yeah, but they did reissue that particular design on newer issue T-shirts.
So when Peter says, "I wonder if she went anywhere if Ned leads. I sure wish he was just a creep so I could really dislike him." Oh, wait till you read the 70s and 80s issues.
Wait for it.
Where Ned goes from rival to Peter Parker who's a little snarky sometimes to complete and utter jerk who manhandles everyone around him. And to the point where, I'm surprised that they weren't dancing Mardi Gras style on his grave.
What are you doing with my wife? 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 Ned, we're at a child's birthday party.
That's just the clown.
Wait, the clown?
Ned punches Peter in the face in issue 193. Manhandles him on the streets in issue 194, grabs Peter's broken arm in issue 195, and then when Peter tell my wife you never want to see her again. Betty, I never want to see you again. Peter, why'd you talk to her like that, you jerk?
Yeah.
That's exactly. Tell my wife you never want to see her again. Betty, I never want to see you again. Peter, you And then, oh God, the way he acted. Oh God, yelling at Vietnamese woman in the Falco run, and then manhandling Flash, and then saying to Betty, I hope that they shoot your boyfriend. Wouldn't that be funny?
And then again, Josh, I give my comic book archival researcher title to you because I don't even remember all this. And I have every issue.
If you ever read the Gang War storyline, Ned's a mustache twirling villain. He's grabbing Betty his estranged wife and almost abusing her and almost breaking her arm. And then Peter's stop it. And then he's oh, so you think it's okay for husbands and wives to cheat on each other?
So I was going to add this to the Aunt Masonility before I realized it actually made a little bit of sense. Whenever Peter walks in, she says, "Hello, Peter. Were you out for a walk, dear?" And my first thought was, did you not notice he was gone all this time? But then I looked back to the issue and realized that it wasn't really all this time. He planned to go shopping, went out, got some money, and got in a fight with the Scorpion and went home. This is actually, as far as durations of time, this is one of the shortest issues we've had.
Yeah, if you look at the timeline, it is pretty quick.
Yeah.
It's just like the Multiman issue in that, both fights, there's no stunt where, the villain gets away and they meet later in the issue. They both, meet each other, fight, and he actually beats them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was all self-contained as far as that goes, and I got to say that it's actually one of, as far as Ditko's artwork goes, one of the better ones in quite a while because it starts in Jonah's office, from there goes out to the rooftops, and then from there off the rooftops into the water. So you've got 3 settings all in the same fight, and it's a pretty long fight, and it actually, art-wise, flows really well and looks really good over those.
I think I actually prefer this one over 20.
I was going to ask.
Oh, definitely.
Which one did you guys like better?
I like
this one for sure. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what else happened. I really like the brutality of the 20, but what I love is on page 16, the panels of him web slinging. People talk about how Todd McFarlane reinvented Peter's web slinging and everything. This is because he's upside down. He's he's.
Oh, this is some great Ditko webs. I didn't pay attention to it before, but you're right. This is some awesome stuff.
It's really good. Especially with him swinging with carrying Scorpion through with other stuff. it's just classic Spider-Man, and you don't expect to see that kind of web swinging action from Ditko, but it's excellent, and I love it.
From panel to panel, the way it flows, it does have a lot of flow from one panel to the next. So you could almost imagine the arcs to the swing of each swing that he's doing here. So yeah,
good stuff.
Yeah, you just, if I can say anything about modern comics, you don't get that kind of fluid action anymore. I mean, modern comics, the art seems much more stiff than this, as far as like from panel to panel, the flow of movement.
And modern comics aren't so much about sequential storytelling as they are grabbing a frame.
And it's a shame. And it's a shame because Ditko really does have a touch for panel to panel action and movement. And I mean, this is a good example of it.
And say what you will about his actual artwork and rendering, he knows how to tell a story.
Oh, definitely.
I like the foreshadowing, like how basically that conversation between Foswell and Jonah sets up the next 2 issues perfectly.
That was one of my notes. I had you have the cat burglar, the theft of the scientific equipment, return of Ned Leeds, Betty's sickness, and Aunt May's dizziness. 5 subplots are started in this issue.
The return of Ned Leeds, rated PG-13.
The return of Ned Leeds. I mean, and again, spoiler alert, he's going to propose next issue. Like, at this point, they've had, like, maybe 2 dates. I guess they never went to see Golden Boy.
You didn't read the letters they wrote back and forth while he was in Europe.
Oh, God.
Or see the photos.
Those things can get pretty steamy.
Oh, this is me. After
he probably proposed to her because, like, after the events of this issue, he's like, okay, if this girl lives by herself, she's probably going to see, like, an ant one day and, like, jump out her window and die.
Well, it turns out that every other boy that Betty dates besides Peter, she bangs at the end of the date. So she and Ned have already like gone to the next level, and they're talking about that in their letters back and forth. And Peter just has no clue. And so they have this whole like intimate relationship going on, and he's ready to pop the question. You didn't know that, but it's true.
I didn't want to get into that.
Ned's just a weirdo, and he has psychological issues. I mean,
Are we still going on with the idea that a grown man's proposing to a teenager?
I don't know, but I mean, obviously, as we saw in the 80s, that guy was unstable, and you can do the retcon about, like, the Winkler machine brainwashing Ned, but Ned was not brainwashed in the Wolfman run when he was, like, accosting everybody for cheating on having dalliances with his wife. So, I mean, he's obviously not of his right mind if he's proposing to a girl, a teenager who he barely knows. I bet he's not in her right mind for accepting when she does, and...
Well, barely knows. I mean, they were writing letters.
You got to figure.
I'm sorry. They were writing letters. Yes. Yeah. No. I mean, they were closer than soulmates. Excuse me.
I had to throw that out there.
Plus, you also got to figure too. Ned has absolutely no idea how completely nut crazy Betty
Bonkers.
is. I mean, she probably, in those letters had made herself look all wonderful and all flowery and everything. Only to come to find out that once he does come back and spend some time around her, eventually she's got to figure out that she's completely nuts. And in the process of them being married, she has driven him completely nuts. I got to imagine there is no living with Betty. Everything that you do is wrong. Everything that you do sends her off in a complete hysterical tizzy. You can't do anything right. Even if you just stand still doing nothing. She'll find something wrong and hysterical about it and run off crying.
Back when we thought that Ned Leeds was the Hobgoblin, there was a Web of Spider-Man annual that did origins of different villains. And when it got to Hobgoblin, it basically said it's all because of Betty. Betty made Ned go completely insane, and he became the Hobgoblin. So blame Betty.
And I believe it. I totally believe it.
There's a panel of Ned and Betty in bed together, and Betty wakes up screaming, and Ned has this horrified look on his face, and he's like, he knew he had to do something. Like, oh, my wife had a bad dream. I better become a murdering psychopath.
Well, we'll cross that road someday.
Well, as far as him proposing to a teenager, from what I said earlier, you got to figure Betty, besides, regardless of what Stan said, I'm figuring she's probably must be like around 18 or 19 because, straight out of high school, she didn't finish high school. She went straight into the workforce. So Ned's got to be like, what, early 20s? So you figure back then in the 60s, a man in his early 20s proposing and getting married to a woman in her late teens probably isn't that weird because a lot of people back then, got married right away and, started working right away and bought a house and started a family.
Even now, would you really, a 22 man and an 18 woman, would you really consider that weird?
I wouldn't consider it weird. I would consider it very premature because I really don't think it's wise this day and age for anyone to get married that young. I think it's a little...
Having gotten married that young, I consider it unwise to get married that young.
We don't know what really happened. Okay,
well, none of it really happened, Josh. This is
No, what really happened was, Aunt May, when she was going on one of her many Florida trips, she really went to Europe and then was like, "Oh, hello, Mrs. Parker." She's like, "Cut the shit. Okay, here's the thing. Your European assignment is over. You're going to go back to New York. Here's $10,000. It's yours if you can get It's yours if you can get Betty Brant to marry you.
Get that hussy out of my little poor Peter's life."
And she was staying in the Osborne Europe establishment.
Oh, well, of course.
Aunt May's like dropping her like, she's like, "Okay, Ned." She like opens up a briefcase. It's like, "That's all yours."
Yeah. It's like in Pulp Fiction where she opens up the briefcase and the golden light just shines up on Ned.
And his eyes get really big like saucers. He's like, "Is that what I think it is?"
I've already taken care of Liz Allen.
Damn, I don't even know what that means, but it sounds terrible.
I'm dying.
Step on Floozy's history.
Aunt May, the diabolical mastermind of the Marvel Universe.
Oh, it gets worse. Like, Mary Jane was alienated from, like, most of her family before she met Peter, and her mother died. Like, Aunt May was probably engineering all that stuff, like...
Oh, sure. She's probably telling
Jane.
Norman Osborn what to do.
Master planner, or Aunt May is the master planner.
Like, it's like, okay, at last, no more romantic competitions in Peter's life. Aunt May, I just met this girl named Gwen. And then she's like, "Oh, that's nice, dear." And Aunt May picks up the phone. "Get me Norman Osborn."
If you notice on the splash page on the 21 where they get married, and you have like the supporting characters, like Jonah's crying and everything. Aunt May is the one that kind of looks. She looks happy, but she doesn't look as excited as you would think. She's more like she's like, "Mission accomplished."
Where are you?
Yeah.
Annual 21.
It's like, "Mission accomplished," and like she looks over at like all the other girls, and like Liz is married to the drug addict. Betty Brant's going insane because she thinks that her dead husband's still alive. Gwen is 6 feet under the ground.
And but of course, like any modern TV show, Aunt May still talks to Gwen's ghost.
Oh, they killed him.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, none of this actually happened, but man, when we go on...
Well,
The world we can build. We should write a novel.
The Secret Life of Aunt May. I just love the idea of like Aunt May like in Europe at this cafe, like with a briefcase, like opening up.
She's like wearing a fedora. She's like wearing like a hat and like a trench coat.
She's wearing a fedora. She's like, "I've already taken care of Liz Allen."
May Parker's journal.
And then in the middle of like the marriage, like to Betty, like Ned's calling Aunt May. He's like, "The deal's off. I can't do it. Betty's too crazy." So then Aunt May, like, she's the one who hired the foreigners men to kill Ned. Got Ned left.
Yeah, I could see the two of them meeting in Europe, like in a dark parking lot. You don't see Aunt May; she's just in the shadows, just sliding the briefcase, across the ground to Ned, in a fake voice.
"The deal's off. You never told me that Betty was crazy."
It's like the 90s show where the Kingpin's leaving a shadow mystery. "Got yourself a real bargain here, a real bargain." And he turns around, it's Aunt May in the chair. It's like,
So Scorpio.
I'm with you.
Peter Parker asked Sally Averill out in Amazing Fantasy issue 15. At this point, Sally Averill's dead because of a car accident. Who was driving the other car?
Bum, bum, bum.
Wow. And the thick plottins.
Sissy Ironwood has not been seen since the 70s.
Deborah Whitman.
She was barely seen in the 70s. What are you talking about?
Oh, Aunt May was like, no. Oh, Jean DeWolf, who hired the Sin Eater to kill her? Aunt May's, her hands are a little dirty.
A little bit.
With blood.
I think they're painted dark red.
And dripping.
So the Scorpion we will not be seeing him again until the original Clone Saga era, Amazing Spider-Man number 145. That's not to say he's completely absent from Marvel. He does give Captain America a couple hassles between now and then, but he's pretty scarcely used. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the Scorpion and Aunt May.
When does he get like the ability to spit acid from his tail? Or is that from the 90s cartoon movie?
I don't think he was in the Powerless trilogy, 341, 2, and 3. I don't think he had acid at that point. Now his tail did have a like an extra pointed protrusion on it, like a stinger, but it didn't ejaculate or squirt anything.
Oh God, that was needed. Thanks.
Sorry guys, my humor is all over the place tonight.
It didn't shoot out suddenly.
No.
Okay. Sure.
With
yeah. That's
with
why
force
Benny had to go
excitement.
home.
It didn't drop a load on anyone.
And in that issue, when the Scorpion shows up, like Peter, like before, like the cops go, he's like, "There's just one thing you need to do," and then it's like cut to him in the hospital room. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Parker, for scaring you. You should be, young man." And then like her and Peter share like a sitcom laugh about it.
I
Like
know that was stupid.
it's like
I hated Aunt May during
what
that.
they say. Never step on a scorpion, and like they're laughing.
She's a freaking Grey Panther. I hated her during that. Where she's like beating people up with like signs and crap.
Yeah, and like, well, she does have that like inspirational speech to Mary Jane. You know, she's like, "No, you must go after Peter. You must never give up, even though his dead girlfriend is miraculously back. You know, I mean, you still got a shot."
Oh God!
Wait till we get to some of like the later stuff with Mary Jane and like her dialogue. Like, "Wow, check out that far out hole in that wall! Like crazy cool." Mary Jane, "This is serious damage to our house. It's gonna cost us thousands of dollars. We might lose the house and the mortgage." Like, "Wow, dig that crazy hole in the wall."
It's mad, Dad.
Yeah, what a pad,
pierce
Dad.
my ears and call me drafty.
This is the most.
The most what?
What are you talking about, woman?
Well, that's one of the issues, and I was like, actually, with Aunt May, she's like, the most what? Because I never heard that phrase.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that next episode, where it begins Aunt May's constant war with slang.
That horrible slang.
I think we've exhausted this story and
beyond. This is really just Scorpion's back
and then some.
Yeah,
Scorpion's back, but on to Aunt May breastfeeding and bathing Peter into high school. And why that's like stunted Peter's emotional growth and made him have no friends.
Did you find that guy on Facebook?
I did not.
The guy filled out my coupon?
He did not turn up, so I don't know if he's dead or what.
Coupon.
Well, St. John Wilson killed him with the help of Aunt May.
Right. Apparently.
We teamed up in Marvel Team Up 34.
You know about that Marvel Team Up where it's like Aunt May and Franklin Richards fighting Galactus?
I didn't, but I do now. Actually, no, I do remember hearing something about that. Like a comedy issue towards the end of the run? Or was it the second series? No, there was no second series.
There was only one series of Marvel Team Up.
No, there was more than one series of Marvel Team Up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like the real series, not like Spider-Man Team Up or like,
When I said second series, my brain was thinking of, oh, damn it, what was the other book that I was just thinking of? What If? Because What If ran and got canceled and started up again. For some reason, that's what I thought of when I said second series. But never mind. So, The Spider's Web had a lot of good stuff this month. Jonah's Robot did not get a very warm reception. But aside from that, Bill Kagan has a letter that I just have to read here, so bear with me on this. Dear Stan and Steve, after giving much thought to the subject of Spider-Man and conducting a careful analysis, I have concluded that Spider-Man is distinctly unique from any other character in comicdom.
Okay, Stan wrote that.
I have based my hypothesis on Spider-Man as a magazine. Spidey as a character has been dealt with before. The following is my analysis of the Amazing Spider-Man. The name Spider-Man comes from the element spidermium, which has the properties of excitement, adventure, and realism.
Steve Ditko wrote that.
Yeah. Spidermium is a relatively new element, having been successfully made by the madmen at the laboratories, and he goes on about this, molecular form Spidermium is known as Spider-Man, has 2 nuclei. One is stories by Stan Lee and stupendous artwork by Steve Ditko. It's really rather neurotic. And the response is, we've been panned, razzed, roasted, and toasted before. We've never been chemically analyzed. We appreciate it. It was
Okay.
rather silly. I think it's another guy who probably just needs to get laid. But Gary Bartlett, he said, I have been reading some of the recent issues of Tales of Suspense, and they have been featuring old stories of Captain America and Bucky. So why not have some stories in Spider-Man telling about what happened to Peter Parker's mother and father? Because he had to have a mother and father to be born. And now there's one of the most startling revelations we've heard in weeks, was the response.
They're robots.
We do, I mean, for anyone who's listening who doesn't know, we are going to have a Peter Parker's parents story sometime in 2011.
It's going to be that soon, really? That's like the 5th annual or something like that?
Yeah.
Yep,
We're gonna
annual
be probably,
5.
We did annual 1 in June, annual 2 now. We'll have annual 3 done before the end of this year, and annual 5 next year.
Spider-Man kills a guy in that issue, annual.
That's right, I forgot. Laura Bush killed a guy.
Yes, she did. Laura Bush killed a guy.
Laura Bush killed a guy.
But yeah, Spider-Man does totally kill a guy in that annual.
He really does. It's kind of crazy. I read it to Lily a few weeks ago, and I was just like, did he just car bomb a guy? And he did, yeah.
Oh, I remember that. Not exactly, but yeah, not too much.
I think this was in annual 5?
Annual 5.
It's been a while. I don't remember
that. Was that weird, creepy old guy's nickname, the Hitman or something?
The Finisher?
The Finisher, yeah.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, like, oh, I guess the Finisher's finished. Spider-Man, he's dead. Yup, I know. I guess the Finisher's career is finished. No, Spider-Man, you're under arrest. You killed a guy.
H. Doyle Abernathy says that Spider-Man is fast becoming the worst of all Marvel's mags due to overuse of J. Jonah Jameson. And that Steve Ditko is probably the worst artist ever to hold a job for any noticeable length of time in the Marvel bullpen.
Stanley wrote that. Steve Ditko found out, and that's why he left.
This is why he left Marvel. Okay, I see.
It's over hurt feelings.
John Hudson wants Spidey to meet the X-Men, which we will be talking about right around the end of this year. Stephen Russell requested that Steve Ditko's picture continue to never be published. Let us preserve the air of mystery over this camera cracker and not ruin a good copy of Spidey.
What?
Because they had, in the Marvel Tales Annual, they had pinned pictures of all of the Marvel bullpen except for Steve Ditko.
Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, but it's still like, Spider-Man will be ruined if I know what Steve Ditko looks like.
I think it was being tongue-in-cheek, but yeah.
No, I think they were serious.
Steve Ditko wrote that.
That was also Stan Lee, because he's like, we can't have Steve in the spotlight. Yeah, I know that's a joke. I know
this is the new suffix to every letter of import. It's like, Stan Lee wrote that.
This is the new running gag.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
You've poisoned us.
I've ruined it.
Now we are poison to you.
But you know, I'm gonna dig out. I know I have a book somewhere that says that. I'm gonna dig it out and let you guys know what it is.
And we have a blurb here in this that marks a definite shift in Marvel's attitude toward DC. Check this out. Gee, have you noticed the sorry mess of Marvel imitations making the scene lately? Imitation may be the sincerest form of flattery and all that jazz, but we want to make darn sure no dyed-in-the-wool Marvel madman gets stuck with one of those inferior brand X versions of the real thing. So lull yourself to sleep each night with these imperishable words. It isn't a Marvel masterpiece unless it says Marvel on the cover trademark. Don't ever settle for less. You're too important to us. Remember, we found you first. And
that's like an abusive boyfriend.
Yeah.
Remember, I found you first. Don't settle for anyone else.
Well, seeing as how DC has...
No one's going to love you the way I do.
Yeah.
Baby!
It wasn't that long ago that Stan Lee had said, never, we'll take all the praise we can get, but never pan a competitor's mag. They're working just as hard as we are. But now something must have happened, I imagine, behind the scenes, because this is going to begin a very long trend where Marvel actively attacks DC in their letters columns, calling them Brand X. And this is the first time Brand X was used in a Spider-Man book.
Oh, so Brand X is a reference to... I honestly did not know that.
Yeah.
It's a reference to DC?
Or at least the competitors in general, but I imagine DC chief among them.
It's rather dickish.
Well, really, in the mid-'60s, what other competitors were there besides DC?
Fawcett?
Were they around in the 60s?
I don't know.
I mean, I know Charlton was, but they were like
Well,
barely
How were sales on Archie?
Yeah, Archie was around all that time.
This was their heyday, right?
Archie has like Obama and like Palin appearing like sipping soda together in their newest book. That's weird.
My wife picked up a comic book. She had me order a comic book for her. Veronica number 202 has the new regular character in the Archie universe that's going to be gay, and she wanted to get it for a friend. So that was interesting. So there were lots of blurbs for all the annuals that were coming around this time, saying that they're all already on sale, especially the Spider-Man and Fantastic Four ones, but my release info says that the Spidey and Fantastic Four books were still a month away. So I don't know if Stan jumped the gun on his ads or if my list is wrong. Either one is possible. But in any case, we'll be covering the Spider-Man annual next episode, along with issue number 30. And the next issue box reads, instead of giving you a big pitch for our next issue of Spider-Man, we'll merely say that it's written by Stan, drawn by Steve, and produced in the usual Marvel manner. In other words, it's the greatest. Get it! See you next issue! In other words, I really don't think that Stan and Steve knew what the next issue was going to be yet. And I think it was probably because the annual was in production around this time and they were just thrown off of their schedule. But we do have 2 ad pages this month. One for 4 more annual masterpieces, because we are definitely full swing into Marvel's annual season for 1965. We have the 3rd Fantastic Four annual and 2nd Amazing Spider-Man annual, both of which will get some attention next episode, as we've said before. Another ad for the Journey into Mystery annual with Hercules vs. Thor, and one for the first Sergeant Fury annual, the first story that moved the Howlers out of World War II. Instead, it had them reuniting for the Korean War. The second ad page had 2 more triumphs for Marvel. Fantastic Four 43 is entitled, Lo, There Shall Be an Ending, which, as the name implies, finally wraps the story that's been running in Fantastic Four since issue 38. This is the one we mentioned last episode where Johnny lets Medusa slip away at the end of the fight. There is a great moment at the end where Reed calls the police to have them pick up the Frightful Four, and the chief thinks it's a prank call. And also, Sergeant Fury 22 is called Don't Turn Your Back on Bull McGivney, and features a fist fight while an air raid rages, because we have our priorities in order. And that brings us to the end of issue 29 and the end of episode number 20 of Amazing Spider-Man Classics. Want to give another big thank you to Eddie deAngelini for bringing on the show with us this episode, and he will return with us next time to look at Annual 2 and issue number 30. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and if you would like to write us and tell us about why you did or did not, the email address is amazingspidermanclassics@gmail.com. You can also go to our website, amazingspiderman.libsyn.com, and leave a comment there. From there, you'll also find a link to our Facebook page. If you can hear the baby in the background, that is Keenan telling you all about why he likes Spider-Man as well. He'll be joining the show whenever he learns English. We did recently pass 100 on the Facebook page, 100 people liking us. We are very excited about all the people who've been supporting this show, and thank you for doing that. So jump on board. Check it out. Try to keep the page active as far as keeping you updated with information about the show, occasionally posting Spider-Man related humor or news articles, and just, keeping the community going. There's also now a crawl space message board section for Amazing Spider-Man Classics. If you go to spidermancrawlspace.com, there's a tab at the top that says Message Board. Click on that and scroll down to Amazing Spider-Man Classics. You can post a question for us there, and we will be addressing those in our email segments on future episodes. So before I go, I would like to remind you that Amazing Spider-Man Classics is brought to you by Roll2Play, your online source for games and gaming accessories. They have a variety of dice and other items, card games, board games, dice games, and they are currently offering 15% off to prepare you for the holidays. So give them a check out. And in the meantime, until next time, thank you for listening to Amazing Spider-Man Classics. Good night.
spider can. Spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out, here comes the Spider-Man. Is he strong? Listen, bud, he's got radioactive blood. Can he swing from a thread? Take a look overhead. Hey there goes the Spider-Man. In the chill of night, at the scene of a crime, like a streak of light, he arrives just in time. Spider-Man, Spider-Man, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Wealth and fame, he's ignored. Action is his reward to him. Life is a great big bang up. Wherever there's a hang up, you'll find the Spider-Man.
Now, if I don't have to... Never mind, I'm not going to say that. I was going to talk down to the audience, and I don't do that.
Let's cut it out.
Oh, just about the... explain that why having liquid metal is important, because metal isn't usually liquid, but people know that. Getting back to my page. Okay, he's naked now. Okay. This reminds me of this whole history over... Sorry? Josh?
No, nothing. Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
I can't remember the joke I was going to make now.
The history of... You were saying the history of something.
Oh.
It was actually hard to get some certain flesh tone colors. So
did you say flesh clone colors? Because this is a Spider-Man show after all.
A little slip of the tongue. Flesh tone, I meant.
So finally...
You can just edit all that out.
No. We'll leave it. It's good commentary.
And he will.
Thank you.
Hold on just one moment. Hi, Lily. Keenan, whatever your name is.
Wow. Oh, God!
This is horrible.
And you're whose kid again?
Whatever your name is. She's a member of the podcast. If it's Lily, if it's Keenan, you should put that thing.
Waiting for us to go to bed.
Lily has some thoughts about Liz Allen.
Oh.
My daughter has been reading in her bedroom, waiting for me to come tell her that it's time to go to bed, and she thought that I had forgotten to tell her it was time to go to bed. So
is everybody feeling all right? I know you guys had a stomach virus.
Bess is still recovering, but I think she's going to be able to go back to work tomorrow. Keenan is still... We're hoping that he doesn't get sent home tomorrow because he's still having problems with that, but it's not a all day 15 type of thing. It's when but it's not. It's gonna get cut out. Bess is wondering if I'm gonna leave in our.
Don't even put that in the bloopers. I don't ever want to hear it again.
No, we're not gonna leave that. You asked. I'm just. The thing is, when you have kids, it's just like bodily fluids become a thing. Bess says no. That's never mind. I should put a filter in.
Well, you're making parenthood sound wonderful.
It's great. Actually, I have no shame when it comes to bodily fluids. So. Blah blah blah. So. Okay.
No.
John?
John?
Huh?
How's the recording?
Oh, that's a good question.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Let me just go check.
It's really...
I mean, it's only 7:30 for me, so hey.
It just started again, so that tells me that it probably stopped recording before. Let me just go check the recorder, though.
God, John, you were scaring me.
Sorry.
What?
Yeah. Oh my God. It's just like the time of JR when we were worried about the recording.
No, so this tells you, who's. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I understand that. I if I'm going to check the recording, I have to actually go check it. But yeah, it's fine. I don't know why we're losing connection though so many times.
Yeah. You're the one who's dropping, which is odd.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you know the Molten Man?
Yeah.
I was going to say something about Liz again. I completely forgot what it was.
Fail.
Yes, I did. Oh no, I know what it was.
It would be like the equivalent of there was like a new singer out today, and they did a song like "I love Justin Bieber and Miley Cyrus."
Okay. I want to Britney Spears. I want to her like an.
Okay. Yep, I lost you guys. Sorry, I think it was my router took a dump for 2 seconds.
I think it was the insanity of of parenting Aunt May style.
Elderly breastfeeding that nearly killed me.
Means you're gay.
Let's go ahead and finish out the episode, and then we can talk more about the gay theater.
Oh, you mean we're not finished? I thought we finished an hour ago.